I'm thinking if this is gonna be the new price point for consoles,
Yeah.
since we have it with the PS5 Pro too,
Yeah.
similar price point.
I mean, dude, I wouldn't be surprised if they were like, create your own fucking gamepad. Like, create your own Joy-Con. Here you go.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? This is Carrick with ACG, and we are in podcast 511. Welcome to everybody who's sat down and saddled up for the podcast. It's going to be an enjoyable time. We're going to talk about Switch 2, and we're going to talk about South of Midnight, some games that came out this week, some games that we've been playing, as well as the price of new systems coming out, not just the Switch 2, but, handhelds, if there's the possibility of an Xbox coming out, or an Xbox, what do you call it? An Xbox, what would you call that? Xbox handheld? I don't know what they would call the let's see, the mini box.
Xbox Go.
The Xbox Go, yeah. So maybe it'll be the Xbox Go. We have no clue what that'll be named, but we're going to talk about all that. We're going to sit back, take some of your questions. There's been a lot of people discussing everything that's going on with games, including, which surprised me, dude. Did you ever pre-order? Did you ever get in line for a pre-order? I heard that this morning.
Never.
I've never heard of that. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It's just it hasn't entered my bailiwick, but people are talking about getting in line to do a pre-order, which is...
I've always thought that was more of an American phenomenon where people line up, but that's not true though, because I know people do it here, like they did it for Harry Potter stuff, and I'm sure
I line up to get something I haven't bought early. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't line up for a pre-order, but I would line up if I didn't pre-order. Does that make sense? Like the idea of lining up for a pre-order is like, what are we doing?
You don't even get a paper. It's like...
Yeah, so you're lining up for the pre-order to get the item so you can come back to get the item versus like, let's say, online. But
we're almost back to the lottery of like playing a lottery to get a chance at buying something for full price.
There was an old movie, Dragon Slayer, where everybody took a lottery and the person who won got eaten by the dragon. I think that would be sort of cool if everybody got in line and it's like, congratulations, you get drugged behind a truck. This is America. Yeah, I have no clue, man. It's just a weird time right now. And those were some weird announcements. What did everybody else think about the announcements for the Switch? The price of the system. Price of the system doesn't bother me at all, actually. That was exactly
what was the price in dollars?
$450 for no game. Yeah, that was the price that had been quoted almost like 6 months ago. And then $500, $450 plus 50 for Mario, which I think retails for 60 or 70. So you're going to save 10 or,
Oh yeah, the Mario Kart.
Mario Kart
that's coming up.
Yeah. Mario Kart, a game you could not get me to care about less. Like I barely remember the name. It's not a thing for me. But boy, in the chat. Like in the Discord chat, people were excited for that game. So I guess
it has quite a bit of pull in the fan base.
Yeah, it's definitely. So what did you think overall of what you saw? Anything that you did see? Like get excited about anything?
I like the form factor. I think it's evolved in a good direction where they're using the space, like the real estate more. That's good. Bigger everything, right? Bigger Joy-Cons. That's great. Bigger screen. It also has, I believe, VRR. Did I see that correctly?
You did see it. You did.
Yeah.
You did.
That's really big bonus for that. Yeah, that's really big bonus, especially because they have a 120 FPS screen, which to some extent I question how much of that is going to be used. But the VRR makes it much more practical, doesn't it? Because if you're hitting like 80, you're actually gonna notice that instead of being like sort of weirdly locked at 60 or whatever it may be. Right. So that's really cool. It also has HDR. I don't know what to make of that for a small screen. Have you had like a tablet with HDR where you noticed?
Yeah, HDR is definitely good. It depends on the brightness of the screen itself. For like the HDR is only as good as your brightest day or your darkest room, which is sort of atypical for any kind of these systems. I've found that I don't watch the HDR nearly as much because I'm outside a lot. So, and outside I need a brighter screen, and unfortunately my few HDR handheld style devices are all a dimmer screen but with HDR, which is somewhat atypical in the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years. It's become less typical now. But yeah, so it is what it is. I'm really happy it's HDR. I'm happy it's VRR. It would have been it would have been nice to get OLED, but I own a G Cloud, which is not OLED, and it has a phenomenal screen. I mean, just insanely good. It's not OLED. There's certain parts that aren't as good, but overall, I give and take. But continue.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
Not all LCD screens are born equal.
Are made
right?
equal.
So
No.
Yeah, so some can look great still. I do agree. It sucks to have the downgrade because now people have gotten used to the OLED.
Right.
Whether people who bought the new one or maybe they have a Steam Deck with OLED, and that's become maybe a staple of portables. And I certainly like my Steam Deck with the OLED. I do notice it. So that sucked a little bit, but fair enough. Couple other things that I dislike about it is the battery life. I'm not too impressed. So I think it's even lower than the current one. Isn't it like between 2 and
Well, they say 2 and 6
hours?
hours,
So,
which is sort of like saying, ta-da,
a big
something
range.
will happen somewhere. Yeah, it's a big
like
range.
when the delivery guy says, "Hey, I'm coming
we will come
between
to fix your
8 a.m.
Comcast
and 8 p.m.
today." And you're like,
Yeah,
well,
today.
that's 24 hours. Yeah, continue.
Yeah. The other thing with the games, what worries me, the new price point. We should talk about the new price point because they're raising the price point. I did obviously dislike that. I also dislike having to pay for an upgrade. So if you're releasing like an improved version of the game for the new console, I would expect to get that included because I'm paying a big premium to get this new console. So similar to like smart delivery, I would expect that. I know we didn't get it with Sony, so in some ways maybe I shouldn't expect it. But I think that sucks, that practice of charging you for an upgrade version of a game. So that to me, it also means that only some games will benefit from the extra performance. Only those games which have the Switch 2 version.
Right.
All other games will perform exactly the same, right? Sure, they're backwards compatible, but
one thing to point out, they won't, because your output, if it's docked, will engage the scaler. So we'll have to see how the scaler looks when it goes.
Okay,
to
so maybe it does look better.
It might,
like 4K
might look cleaned
and
up.
stuff.
Anybody who's had any of these devices, I've had 4 or 5. Kig bought one last night. There's a thing called an M cable. It's a French
I remember
company.
that.
Yeah. And they do a fairly good job with a pretty cheap upscaler to fix 1080p out or 9, whatever it is on the Switch, to fix it and clean up the pixels a little bit before you get it to your TV. Now TVs are crazy in their upscaler tech. It's ridiculous. So who knows? But yeah, overall, you're right on all that. It is what it is. And the price, they did say some will come with free upgrades. Some will not. Some you'll pay. We've paid before. This is the difference between Xbox and PS5 in particular. There's many a time where the Xbox version wasn't requiring the extra money for the upgrade of of the newer console version. We'll just have to see how it all pans out. I mean, Nintendo's going to try to get they tried to make you make your own VR headset. Like, I don't know why anybody woke up and was surprised that Nintendo notoriously, I know for some reason now that people sort of now finally naturally extended towards the word grifter, using it incorrectly, but it's still there. I think Nintendo in particular has a very pro Nintendo, but we deliver good games style, meaning they're still trying to get the most money out of whatever they do, but they take a long time to vest developer ability into their titles. However, when there are no other titles and you're jumping into a new system, the gamer doesn't know what those titles are going to be. There is no history there. I mean, you could say that history is a Switch 1, but it's really not. It's like we're at a whole new level. Ray tracing's in this. DLSS is in this. So you really have to look at it as a somewhat new thing, which might take a developer a while to get accustomed to as well. People think, everybody's just going to, be able to grab onto this. It's like if they tried to do ray tracing and maybe, runs at 32 FPS using VRR, you know what I mean? Like, there's all kinds of little caveats that can happen.
So for
bigger
DLSS,
screen was great, though. Sorry. That's great.
I was just curious because DLSS normally works best if you have a slightly higher resolution to begin with that you're going from, isn't it?
So this is what's not smart. This is what they're doing slightly differently. It is not exact DLSS that you would have at a card. It is a DLSS specifically patented for them that is slightly different to take advantage of a sub. It'll do stuff at a lower level. It's fine-tuned for getting them to 1080p or 4K. Will it work as well? I don't know, but it does seem like they've understood that. Why do we worry about 1440p to 4K? Well, you wouldn't need to waste any time doing those samples right now. Instead, sample on the lowest common denominator resolution and getting it upscaled to something that works for your device. This is also why it's smart that it only does it when you plug it into the device. It might use DLSS to get to 1080p for some games, but overall it's not trying to do anything super powerful. It's very smart. It's like, we're going to hit 1080p. That's what we're doing on the screen, and then from then on we're pushing out. But you are absolutely correct that if you go 360p and try to upscale that shit,
only so much it can do. Like,
only so much. I can't say. I mean, the thing is like, glaucoma filter jokes notwithstanding, I have played a number of games on the Legion, the ROG Ally when I had it, and others at a pretty low sample rate, and because it is a handheld, have not been that turned off by a lower sample, and that was on generic FSR / and
that's mostly because of the smaller screen, right?
Yeah. The 8-inch, though, I will admit, Johnny, weirdly enough, 8's perfect, because the you already know where that goes.
Yeah,
the 8-inch, like the Legion, that kind of screen is perfect. Once you start getting to the 10, which I also have a 10-inch, that requires some eye lube. There are times when you get the old 10-incher where you're like, then you're blowing things up to a slightly bigger proportion,
Yeah.
But then the games. So they're selling us an instructional pamphlet, basically, in digital form, which is it's Nintendo. It's absolutely hilarious that they're doing it. Doesn't surprise me they're doing it, but it sucks nonetheless. But the fact that they're selling you what is basically an instructional video with some interactive elements, and they're charging a tour. They're, charging. Imagine you go into your own house and somebody walking in and having the fucking unmitigated gall, the sheer audacity to sell you a fucking tour to your own house. Imagine that. That's Nintendo right now. So you're at your house, you're sitting there, you're hanging out, you know where the fridge is, and some fucking grandma shows up and she's like, it's $8 for me to show you how to open the fridge you've been able to open since you were fucking 5 when you were stealing ice cream when your parents were asleep. That's the fucking, that's Nintendo. It's unmitigated gall. That is them. Right. Bold-faced, unmitigated gall. So the fact is, nobody should be surprised. This is them. This has always been them. I don't know why somebody thinks Nintendo is going to magically change the ways that have worked gangbusters. It's all the slobs out there that are fucking bitching that consistently gag at that and buy everything Nintendo makes consistently.
Yep.
So it's like, at some point, if you keep showing up for the one night stand, the person's going to realize you're going to show up for it. You got to not show up. And the thing that did surprise me was everybody that I knew was still going to get it. They bitched to high heaven. They were unhappy, just like I was. And then turned around the very next day, and every single person was like, I'm going to get in line. And I was like,
I'm just waiting for all the people to buy the tour. Ironically, they're like, no, bro, I bought it ironically as a funny thing.
Okay, Grandma, sell me the $10 tour. They did delay the things because the tariffs that just took effect, which is going to be a rough go. It's going to be, here's the thing, Johnny, like, the games have already risen in price. We've got, Sony went with the 70, they announced it. Not everybody took that same tact. We've seen that. Multiples have stuck at 50 or 60. Some premium games at 70. Some games have done the old switcheroo where they give you 3 days access for 100, and they come across in a way we don't like that, but at the same time we are getting that. So there's other ways developers can take this premium. Nintendo's premium of 70, 80, 90 to me isn't as bothersome on one game, because it's one game. And then you start adding up, and you get a second, a third, and a fourth, and pretty soon, you are at this higher amount. But I do want to say this: there has never been, ever in history, any indication any indication whatsoever in history that Rockstar sits up late at night and watches Nintendo to figure out the price of what their fucking next game is going to be. So if you have people,
so this is the discussion
this
point.
is the discussion.
That,
GTA at 100 was going to be GTA at 100 whenever they chose to do GTA at 100. It has nothing to do. I saw people say, well, it establishes a pattern. Dude, that GTA isn't a pattern. GTA has no connect. Rockstar doesn't have a pattern. They do their own. Well, you could say their pattern is pure chaos, anarchy, and whatever they want to do. It has nothing to do with this. If people want to be worried about something, don't be worried about GTA to fucking 100, because that's not the problem. Do you know what the problem is? Avowed 2 at 100. The problem is Days Gone 2, the shitting at 100. That's the problem. Don't worry about Rockstar. They're their own fucking platform. Worry about all the others that are going to try if this succeeds and if they want to do it. They won't all want to do it.
Not all. We did see, like, Steam, for example, a number of games did go up to the 70, and over here it's £60.
Yeah.
So it's a bit different. But when we saw that with Sony, some games for full price are now also similarly priced on Steam. So that could worry people, or maybe should worry people, that we start seeing that.
We could, but when I did an analysis, it was less than 2%.
Less 2%.
Less than 2%.
What do you think about like Sony?
Lot,
what's the prospect of like Sony maybe matching the $80?
So there's a Switch tax that, even if it's a game cart, which by the way is hilarious, the little cart that's got a code in it that lets you download the game, whatever. There's always going to be, and always has been, a Switch tax. And now Switch 2 tax will be very real. Very real. Those carts, by the way, that they're doing are phenomenal tech. They are massively faster than the carts that they had before. And these carts and the technology has only come up with this speed in the last like 2 or 3 years. And they're not cheap. So we're seeing that tax. I'm not, by the way, in no way, shape, or form am I like
sure, you're not justifying.
Change them. Yeah, I'm not saying anything like that happened. But when you look at it, that tech, we will pay that tax for them. We already now know, as of the last 24 hours, multiple companies have stated they are not going that price. Those are third-party companies. They've stated very clearly they are not doing the higher price, which is what we've seen with Sony and Microsoft so far.
Yeah.
So but this kind of bullshit that makes no analytical sense, no sense whatsoever, that Rockstar has any connection with. It's Nintendo.
All based on vibes, man.
Dude, it's based on vibes, all right. It's based on fucking hookah, man. It's based on people just being like fucking. Hey, I got, Rockstar staying up late at And not only that, when you look very simply at Rockstar sales, I think last night somebody did some math and was saying Rockstar at half their sales at $12 would have already made all their money back on GTA 5. I think it's even less than that. So they do their own thing. They do their own thing. And there is no connection whatsoever. If there was a connection, if the world was this easily identifiable, and it makes you comfortable to think the world is this easy to identify. It's not. The world's chaos, anarchy, and bullshit. But the idea, if it was this easy, every game would be 70 because Sony started doing it. Every single game would be 70, and every game would have 3-day early access, neither of which is true. Or 10-day early access because one company did it, neither of which is true. It'll never be true. It'll never be true because you do have Steam. You've got good old games. You have Xbox Game Store. You have subscription services. Multiple companies are not going to want to release into that ecosystem. Also, Johnny, if you release a game and I release a game, and you're known as a big star developer and I am not, the chances of me wanting to enter your bailiwick, the chances of me wanting to enter your sphere,
what I mean with the competition. Exactly.
It makes no sense that I would say I want my game to be 70 because yours is. There's a very real pattern of developers understanding that $20 off can get them a lot.
Or even 10. Or just even the 10. Perception of it, 10. It's almost like you're setting yourself up for a different weight category, like in MMA or something. You're signing up for like the heavyweight, but you're a medium or whatever.
And then Doomski says, at least on Xbox, PS, or PlayStation and PC, you have sales. Just wait 2 months and the game will cost half the price. Problem with Nintendo is their games do rarely go on sale. That is correct. And remember, he's saying Nintendo first parties. The third parties do go on sale. Case in point, I bought many of their games, from third-party companies, which it seems to me third-party companies are coming out right now to sort of clear the air. Because in the last like 2 or 3 hours, I would say, prior to coming in here, we saw multiple companies saying ours are not going to, we're releasing ours at 69 or at 59 but not at the new full 80. However, I was also surprised at the games. The price stuff we know about. Let's look at the games.
Yeah.
Dude, 2 things surprised me. One, ignoring the textures, which were some straight up, you need LASIK surgery right now. Final Fantasy Remake I think that's a great litmus test for this system, because what it's showing is it's a fairly large game, got a lot of stuff going on, and what they showed, even if docked, looked good, not great, good. It looked Switch 2 level. Also, Cyberpunk. Did not see that coming, had not heard that was coming, so that to me was a surprise. I think one of you guys in Discord joked about it, and we were all like, okay, well, it won't have ray tracing, most likely because of the extra FPS loss, blah, blah, blah. So the fact that that's on there, that's pretty exciting for people who like Cyberpunk. I think that's awesome. And I think that's also a great test, a great technical test. That to me is exciting to see people go and say, okay, we're going to, how would Cyberpunk, in Switch's terms, the tech they've changed, the modifications they made to run on Switch 2, how's that going to look? That's exciting. Those are my 2 surprised. Did you have any games that you saw that you're surprised for?
Metroid. I was interested in that.
Metroid.
I think that's going to be super exciting. There is a Pokemon game too announced, but I didn't quite catch if it's like a full new title or more of like a remaking or remaster.
I don't know.
But yeah, the Metroid Prime is pretty much the only one I was pretty interested in. It's cool to see these other big games, because the difference when you compare a game, like a third-party game launching for Switch,
right,
instead of, let's say, being available in the current portables like any of the Asus or Steam Deck, is that the games are not like developed for those.
Correct. Absolutely.
Like for that hardware, if that makes sense. So they can be Steam verified all day, but that doesn't mean it will run well.
That
right?
means we've seen nothing. Yeah.
I mean, dude, we've seen some weird games like Ori and the Blind Forest that ran terrible for me, even though it's a lighter game. Then you see others that do pretty well. So you really never know. So that's a good difference, which is going to be, hey, I now know that if something is releasing on Switch 2, and I'm hoping this is going to be a high bar, that like the games are going to run decently if they're released at all. And so maybe that's going to be a cool thing for portable enjoyers, where they can buy a game, kind of resting easy, that it's been much more thoroughly tested than something like the Steam Deck.
I absolutely agree. I think that's one of the positives of having anything that's a platform that you're aimed at and you're looking at is always a huge positive. Highlander Grim 0351 $2 super chat. Morning, gentlemen. Morning to you, and thank you for the super chat. It does help the channel, as you guys know. No sponsors, nothing like that. So any of that kind of stuff helps. I think aiming Cyberpunk for Switch 2 is going to be probably the most interesting to me from a technical standpoint. Because what I saw looked good. We'll have to see. We've seen things look good and then on a trailer, but I'm looking at like background detail, stuff like that, and it looked better than what I thought it might look on that. We'll have to see how ray tracing works, if they've applied it. Personally, I think Cyberpunk looks completely fine without ray tracing, and I would almost rather them aim for not. We know it's at 40, which is awesome, because VRRs, that's exactly the number that I was sort of hoping for, because I didn't think it'd get 60. That's asking a lot.
Probably not.
It's asking a lot even from a lot of current systems, at least prior to all these really good patches the Cyberpunk guys have done. Hats off to them. They have done a good job fixing that game up. So that to me is exciting. Hogwarts was interesting. because Hogwarts was redone. There was even geometry that was adjusted, moved around to get Hogwarts originally on the Switch 1. So I don't know what the Switch 2 is going to be. Like, is it just going to be a port straight over? And, you know, maybe they're like, hey, if you want to play Hogwarts again, but you want to play it like it was originally made, here's your Switch 2 version. I feel like that's a little not hedgy. It's just it doesn't interest me. I also have Hitman written down here, as well as Elden Ring. 2 games that surprised me to see Elden Ring running on there. That to me is like,
and to me that's a really good Switch game if they get it to run well.
Yeah.
Because that's just a big sprawling game. You can spend so much time just exploring, sitting almost like a Skyrim. We talked about Skyrim on the Switch a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, those Elden Ring, that's exciting as hell. And then you have FromSoft's other, we're going to pretend like Bloodborne isn't a thing, but it's now a thing on the Switch game, which I thought was hilarious that they did it, but it is what it is. We'll have to see. It looked a little odd. I don't even remember the name. What was that? Blood Boosters or fucking, I don't know, Blood Type. I can't remember. But it was like a Bloodborne's adjacent game that looks to be a multiplayer or PvE something that's on there. Not super interested in it until we get closer. But showed a guy with a jetpack flying around, and it showed what looked to be like a vampire. So I'm all jetpacks, vampires.
And for them, a game that is like multiplayer, whatever you want to call, like PvP, VE, that's big. They're making some strides toward the online. They also showed a bunch of features like play with your friends, stream a game so your friends can play it without owning the game.
Yeah.
Like having the camera show up as an overlay with like
we'll get to the tech in a second, though. I just want to cover the games for a second because I do want to cover what you just said. Hitman also. I think Hitman's that's a good game on there. Were there any others that you saw before we do move to tech? Were there any others that popped up? I'll say this. Game of the show for me, straight up, absolutely game of the show for me was Donkey Kong. I just feel like Donkey Kong filtered more towards what I like about Nintendo than any of the other stuff shown. Like, I saw the movement. I've talked to 2 people who've got hands-on. They actually really liked it. I'm not a Donkey Kong fan, but what I saw, to me, that was exciting as shit. Like, that looked like what I was hoping a first-party game would be doing. Maybe, I personally felt that you could see some of the lower, there were some things on there graphically. But Donkey Kong, to me, people were talking about there's just tricks and secrets everywhere. It's like an old Mario 64 in a way where you're just constantly finding new stuff. And because you can destroy the environments, people were finding things all over the place. In fact, couple were suggesting it might be a little too busy right now. We'll just have to see when it comes out. But Donkey Kong, man, I'm not a Donkey Kong fan. And
it looked impressive.
That looked like what I was hoping these guys would fucking do. I was like, that's exactly what I was hoping for. Let me read this super chats, and then we will get to the tech. Manuel Dop 500. What's Nintendo's idea behind not releasing a new Mario game, Odyssey? Mario game. Odyssey came out in 2017. Dude, I so agree. It's going to depress. I'm trying not to get depressed. I'm trying to talk about the good stuff before we dive into the bad. But I agree with this. Dude, I don't get it. I think you and I've already talked about this a couple times, but why is there just no Mario 64 times 2 or whatever you want to fucking call it? Triangle strategy, stupid name, verb.
Yeah.
Why? Like, to me, a Mario Odyssey 2 or even better would be a Mario, play around with the name and try to do a multiplication in the title or something. A true Mario, man. Like, that to me would be the day one first party title. I mean, Donkey Kong looks good, but if it was Mario, I think the excitement would be far higher, regardless of the price issues, which are very real. I just feel like Mario, maybe it's like they don't know what to do with it. It's Mario. It's like, make a game with it, jackasses, but they don't seem to be able to figure that out. Yeah, Mario would be phenomenal. Doomski, $5 super chat. Love the show and the channel. Thank you all for the good work you guys do. Thank you very much. I'll pass that on to Silver as well. Also got one from Tissa on DMs, I want to say thank you to the people who, regardless of how you get a hold of us, feel free always. We'll try to read your thoughts, your chats, whatever. Tissa says, I've watched your podcast since day one. You guys got me through tough times, rough times, and roll on the floor laughing out loud times. I really do mean it when I say thank you, and I love you guys. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
I appreciate it. Woman. Actually, I know who Tissa is, I think. But yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm glad you enjoyed the show.
A couple other games, by the way. So Tears of the Kingdom, that's going to be one of the most compelling ones for me to consider getting a Switch 2.
Okay.
So having a version for that's really cool. We also saw Star Wars Outlaws was announced too for it.
We did.
And I thought, I mean, that game looks impressive. So similar to Cyberpunk, it's going to be a nice technical showcase of what it can do. A bunch of other smaller games too. I just wanted to shout out a couple. Like, well, there's Project 007, right? That was shown. And then also Astroneer. So Astroneer is a game that's been around forever, but they continue to release like different content patches and stuff. And this one is called Starseeker Astroneer Expeditions. So that was announced, and that's multiplayer too. So once again, making a jump into more like online type games, which is cool for them. But yeah, just a ton of games.
Yeah, I have here that it looks like around, unfortunately, only 2 to 3 primary titles on day one, but 48 non-Nintendo titles that were shown just at the Direct. And there's about 20 day one. I think there's about 15 or 16 that we know are day one, and I know of 4 others coming. I will say this also, surprised at some omissions in the event. Maybe it was their time limit. Maybe it's because they wanted to show that the C button was for chat and not, cunnilingus or whatever it would be for. I think everybody knew it'd be for fucking chat, but whatever. We've got a chat button up there. So congratulations. What did we say months ago? That if Nintendo had chat, they would finally catch up to where Xbox was, like, I don't know, whatever our thing was. It was 15 or 20 years ago. Nintendo has finally entered the chat, which is weird to me. They're also the ability to stream your picture, like you said, but I swear to God, it looked at 2 FPS. I don't know what was going on there. Yeah.
Yes.
But they do have some tech there. Again, 8-inch screen, super happy for that. DLSS ray tracing, super happy for that, regardless of, sampling rate, which probably won't be super high. It's probably going to be pretty low level when it comes to their coverage. And then, games. I mean, overall, the price is their big sticking point, man. They really, Nintendo knows how to level the playing field when it comes to emotion. They love to be like, yeah, you can date me, but it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you some serious ducats. And that's where we are. Oh, Dusk Bloods. Thank you guys for reminding me it's called Dusk Bloods. Yeah. Thanks for that. But, I don't know, man. It's overall, I like the system, but, they didn't change where the gamepads are, so that's still going to be uncomfortable for me. I'm going to need to add another, what is it, 50, I think, or 70 for a Satisfy or whatever other third-party, controllers out there.
Yeah.
Camera, I have no idea why they're what was that, PSI toy or Robbie the robot or some shit where you've got like some random item there watching you. Or Connect. I don't know why the camera is a big deal to them, but it's something you can buy. I don't think I would ever.
I'm trying to think
I would ever purchase it.
What is even the use case? So I'm playing a game, and I want to see my 4 other friends or 3 other friends.
Yeah.
As they're playing the game too. And I want to see it in my tiny 8-inch screen, so that the screen that I'm on, that I'm controlling, is 1/4 of the size. So, like, imagine you're playing a game, right? But you're playing 1/4 of that screen, and the other 3/4 are occupied by your friend's gameplay plus their shitty game.
And you know what's even weirder, dude? So the rumors for a while have been that a camera was in it somewhere.
Yeah, right.
That would have been much better to have a pinhole camera in it. But I'm sure there's a privacy issue that Nintendo consistently is Nintendo definitely toes the line compared to everybody else with privacy, with all this kind of stuff. So it's like, okay, we're not going to put it on there. But instead, it looks like a camera you'd buy. Luckily, it's not Elgato's fucking prices where they're gouging people. But it is still a thing where, like, I'm not going to want that thing watching me. I don't see any use for that. We'll just have to see. Obviously, there is use. I do feel like a peripheral is always that unfortunate secondary friend that you come over where your 4 best friends are there and the 5th friend comes over and they just don't jive as well as everybody else and they go to sleep early. That's the camera. Like, that's the camera is going to be the device that comes over and for a second is like everybody's high-fiving it going, man, it's been cool to see you, man. This is awesome. And then after a while, that thing's going to be in a fucking closet. Like, it's going to be
you'll use it one time for the novelty.
Yeah.
And then that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be weird. Thanos Gaming, CA 50 or 5 super chat. Love from Canada. You guys should eat glizzies on the stream. Glizzies.
Wait, that sounds nasty. What is that?
Sounds questionable, but it's Canada. It's Canada, so it's probably not. It's probably a confectionery of some kind.
They got milk in plastic bags. So...
Yeah, bags. Milk in plastic bags. How dare you? Thank you very much, Thanos. You rock. We appreciate it as always, man. I think price and tariffs are going to repeat. I think price and tariffs are going to repeat the every other Nintendo console sells poorly curse. That's Flexa. That took like a little while for me to parse. Let's see. Every other Switch and Wii though. Switch, it was Wii U, then Switch, right? So that would check out. Yeah, it's possible.
So what do you make of the cartridges? So the situation with the cartridges is that it's now you have to download the game, right? You can't install it.
Some will have it all on the game, but some will have it all on the system, but many will not, for sure. They're too big.
But you do have to like effectively copy the data into your system to then run it from the console.
I'm sure they'll have an install, but the one nice thing about these cartridges is they are super fast. Like they legitimately are fast enough to stream a game from. But I'm sure they'll have an install where you put that data on or whatever, you know.
Okay.
It'll depend on the game too. But yeah, they have the game cards, which are the ones that are going to have a disc and then a slip of paper that just says, here's your code kind of thing, like we've seen in some physical PC titles. But then they're also going to have game carts that are the full game, or at least they say is the full game. No one will know until it happens, until we get them in our hand, and there probably won't be a specific way in which every single one will hit. It's just, I personally feel there's a very good chance that you'll throw one in and it'll play the first half of the game and the other half will be downloading. You know, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it could be.
Dude, I mean, they're big games, man. You know, like games, audio, I mean, not even uncompressed audio, just audio can get huge on a game title. And these guys are now going to try, look at Cyberpunk, Hitman, all these, they're trying to hit the same PC titles that Windows PC games have hit, and they're huge. They're huge.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was interested.
Yeah, and we wouldn't want them to be limited to what can play well from a cartridge either.
I guess your other question then, Johnny, is would you have been happier if there was no cartridge slot other than Switch 1 compatibility or mini compatibility, because not fully compatible, which does piss me off. We'll get to that in a second. Would you rather just have them have it all be digital?
No, I think it would have been a mistake because Nintendo fans are still
attracted
they like
to
physical.
That idea. Physical.
They're attracted to physical. They want to buy the box. They want to
physical
interact.
Matters,
they want to have
regardless of what people say.
Physical matters. They want to insert the cartridge. I think there is something to that, actually.
Right.
The whole cartridge thing.
Yeah, there is something to it, right? There's something to getting that item, putting it on your
I admit, even I
pedestal.
feel it. It's kind of cool to insert a little cartridge there.
Really?
For a game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I get you.
Hey. More than a disc, for some reason. There's something
more
about
than
the
a disc.
cartridge.
Okay, I agree with that fully, because when I grew up on Laserdiscs. Those were the huge ones. You put those in, they'd skip. Then you go to CDs, and they worked most of the time, but you'd get that, Baldur's Gate 1 where you're on the 4th disc and it's like cannot find file, and instead of letting you try again, it just deletes the entire game and you have to start all over again. You're blowing on the, disc, you're wiping it on things. And then Blu-rays had its own issues. So I get what you're saying. I absolutely get what you're saying. I can see why people like the cartridge, but there's a tax, man, for physical media, plastic physical media. This isn't a disc that's pressed. This is like the typical stuff you would put, not typical, it's a different system, but you would put in a cell phone, or not a cell phone, I'm sorry, but a camera, and super fast, which is nice. I will say that's one nice thing, is it seems like
it is nice, but in my mind, if they just made it the same speed, but big enough to fit the game files, what you could do is you
and then install
you would still have to install every time, but you keep the price down, maybe, right? So I think that would have been preferable. I would prefer to pay whatever, 70 instead of 80 and have to install the game.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I had
without
choice,
without a doubt. Yeah, $10 would have, what you're saying is if $10 would have got us the same games, but there would have been a short burst install process to get that first level on there, or whatever. Almost like some games let you down if you are playing multiplayer and you haven't installed it for a while. If you go in, it looks at your save game and can be like, we need to install this part of the game first and then the rest later. Yeah, smart install. Yeah. Switch battery. That's what I want to talk about next. So Curtis says Switch 2 battery is the most disappointing thing. We'll have to see. I would agree across the board. ROG, Legion, Switch 2, Steam Deck. Battery tech itself is disappointing. Just as a tech, it is lagging behind everything else. And I mean, I don't know. You know that the first thing that's going to happen, I think I already saw it on Amazon, a little magnetic battery that usually used for cell phones, but they say it'll have Switch compatibility. All your stuff, if USB-C does. I have Switch. I have extra batteries. Reg has the battery pack on the on his Quest 3, I think. I think on his Quest 3. I could be wrong. But it has a baby battery in the headset plus its own removable. So you have like 5 minutes of battery life with no battery, technically. So you're walking around, and so you can switch out batteries. Hot swap. Yeah, I love that idea. I would agree, though, that the battery life, especially when we're driving these damned systems and wanting more and more from them, that you are stuck with battery being disappointing because they want it to not be super heavy. And tech for batteries just sort of, it ain't there, man.
It hasn't progressed that much. What is it, Moore's Law? That has the processing.
More about
I think
computation.
It's the amount of like the computation or like the amount you can fit. I forget exactly what the
this is less
metric
is
law. Because Moore's is like
is less
every
law. The farther we go,
like
the less it does.
Every year or whatever, and batteries have kind of stayed
stagnant,
pretty much the same. The price has gone down a bit, so you can buy some power banks for much better price than some years ago. But
they're heavy.
Yeah, like the amount you can fit in that form factor. And it's the same with laptops. It stayed, pretty
generally the same.
Yeah, it's like in a plateau right now.
Yeah. Dude, it is weird though when you look. So I was laughing with Void last night about Anchor. Anchor has something for everybody. Like Anchor, it's the weirdest company. They sell. He was joking around. He was saying that anything he goes online, it's like headset, Anchor's there. Fucking battery pack, Anchor's there. I was like, kidney replacement, Anchor's got you covered. Yep. There's always going to be an Anchor product for these kind of things, but it doesn't replace the fact that the reason why they continue to exist for batteries is just because, the tech, they've tried other stuff. Even in Airsoft, we had LiPo, then we went to what was called basically Life, and they were a little less voltage, but you could charge them down. They wouldn't explode. They didn't need restrictors to charge down different cells. They worked fine, much more safe if you were not taking heed. They didn't really catch on. In home, batteries they've caught on pretty well. There's LiPo still, but there's also Life. There's a couple of other brands of batteries that you can get for home generators. They're called generators. They're really not. They're just giant batteries. But
Yeah.
you can run your fridge off of them. You can do all that kind of stuff. We just haven't seen it for the handheld market, man. I like this one right here. 65, which is what I need for the Legion. The Legion says it requires 45, I believe. I've never got it to click on charge at 45, but 65. This thing is a monster. Easily almost as heavy as the Legion device. And it has, I believe I've got 100,000. And then this is a knockoff Chinese brand, which I don't even know if they exist anymore. Emuto. And they are super fast charge, like 120. Doesn't seem to hold what it says. That's the other thing with battery packs. They'll be like, yeah, we got 100,000. You look at the size of it, and you're like, my ass, that's 100,000. Like you can't, there's not an extra dimension in that battery pack. But it does charge fast. Charges the Legion once, which is nice, and charges it super fast. But I agree with you, man. We're sort of stuck on the battery size. It definitely is not something I enjoy.
We need to discover, like, I don't know, dude, like some new material.
Dude, that's why with my Legion, I'm always parking cores or turning this down. If I'm doing GeForce, everything in my Legion is almost off, and you can play for hours. But it would be nice if there was a button that just did that, because it's not the same thing as like efficiency mode or anything like that. You have to go in and do stuff. So, what's up, Lucitan? How you doing? Let's see. Switch 2 battery is the most disappointing. Okay, we got to that. Sorry. My apologies. Curtis says 1080p, 60, 120 in handheld mode is going to be killer. 130 the most. Yeah. Yeah, I think 120 FPS. What do you think, dude? I think 120 FPS is going to be... It's not that it's going to be rare. I just don't think I'm going to personally play those games. I feel like 60 will be fine, and battery life will probably demand
what I'm thinking about is just a smoother... Think about like your 60 FPS experience, but smoother. So you might have more overhead, right? So maybe you're running at 80 FPS or even 70. It just kind of feels a bit smoother because of VRR too. So that's what I'm hoping for the display, that it can go a bit above 60, and you will notice that for sure. 120, I think very unlikely. Maybe for some really small ones.
I also think it's going to be awesome to see what this does to other devices. I mean, I do like competition, so there's that. I will say that other devices have definitely trumped them in their ability to make a handheld that's super comfortable. Even people I know who have smaller hands don't like the Switch's overall comfort. So it'll be interesting to see if people continue to look at that and go, okay, we do need to move the thumbstick. How do we move it? Where do we move it? Can't move it too close to the screen because you have a thing called screen bend, where if you're pressing and moving on the screen, you have pressing and moving on the thumbstick, you have a screen near it. You can technically, over time, wear on that part of the screen. Do some damage with bending and stuff. But
the ones you have, do they already have 120 hertz on the screens? Any of the portable ones?
Two do.
You have?
One does, but doesn't do VRR. I believe it's the Legion that does 120 or 144, but you can do half or full.
Okay. Yeah.
VRR, to me, I lock the game anyway. So if I'm playing on a Windows one, I should say, I'm locking it at 60 or locking it at 1. It's just locked. That's sort of what it is. But VRR is definitely...
You prefer to just have it constant?
For what I'm doing, I do, but VRR is definitely a bonus.
If you're recording,
no, I just mean playing. I mean, I lock it because I lock it, but I'm just saying that that's not negating that VRR is obviously what you want if you can do it.
Okay,
that's all I'm saying. Yeah. So overall, I would say the system launched, or the event launch that they did, like a 5. Like if we rated it, I would say a wait for a sale.
Wait for a sale.
Yeah, because I liked, dude, Cyberpunk 40. That's awesome to me. I'm gonna love jumping in there and seeing how that works. Even though I don't like Cyberpunk, I love tech. Gonna love doing that. Hitman, probably checking out some of the big titles. I know some other titles that are for sure coming from big providers. You and I have already discussed some of these. Those are for sure coming. I can't wait for those. But a lot of tax on this thing, and the tariffs aren't even included.
Right. Yep.
It's going to be expensive.
It's going to be expensive.
Craig says, Carrick, what's your favorite handheld gaming device? Now? That's a good question, man.
What's that one you talk about? The G deck?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because the Legion is by far 10 times more comfortable than all the other ones I've had. Like pure comfort and the way it feels with the triggers, it just cannot be beat. But it is heavier, but I do like it a lot. I mean, yeah, the G Cloud is pretty awesome from Logitech. I do wish it was $100 cheaper because it's a streaming device. I mean, it's an Android; it can play Android games, but it's more for streaming. I think that would have been smarter to be $100 off, because not everybody's going to want to use their device like that. I will say, I use Moonlight or Moonshine, Moonlight, whatever. I still mess it up.
Moonlight.
What the fuck? Sunshine and Moonlight. Yeah, okay. I use those, and I've switched branches on my PC to a newer branch that allows for a shit ton more customization. Phenomenal, like for at home. So the G Cloud is definitely my at-home device. It's just lighter. It does have the little itsy bitsy nubbins for gamepads, though. I like a stick that is a little bit taller. Feels like the throw is a little. For example, I can't play Cyberpunk on it, no matter what I try, because the throw on the stick isn't the same as a normal. Like if you have a normal controller, I'm gonna not bring. So it's short. Controller. Yeah. So this is the Vader. Look at that. It even knows to gray screen out the Vader. It's like, this Vader is not a part of Jeremy's face. That one sticks out a little farther. Yeah, so the throw feels better, you know. What about you? What do you got for handhelds? Oh, you've only got Steam Deck. I Switch.
I got the Steam Deck OLED, and I have the Switch. The normal Switch.
Normal Switch, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, this is going to be cool to see. I don't know, the tariffs. What do you think everything's going to be priced at with the tariffs? I personally say minimum $50 more for the system. Minimum.
I think that makes sense. Do you think there's going to be like scalping, or in general, like prices being over MSRP, like how we see for GPUs and stuff?
Well, they did say that they have two fixes or two things to mitigate a bit of the scalping. One is the region specific Japan Switch 2, which is cheaper. That's only going to work in Japan, supposedly. We'll have to see who hacks that and what they can get out of it. And then they also have a thing where if you've already bought 12 months or have ever bought 12 months of Nintendo Online, you have a higher chance of getting an order from them fulfilled versus somebody like me who's never paid for it. I don't think I've paid for it.
Okay, interesting.
So
like
those
a loyalty
thing,
reward.
Yeah. And I think that's just ridiculous. Like, yes, it's fine, but you're finally offering a system that will play somewhat current games, and now you're going to arbitrarily hold it to a lot of people who might continually be happy with the Switch. But I don't want to harm anybody who has been a fan. If that's the way you want to do it, you're helping out fans, which is great. That's a positive too. But yeah, they'll be scalping for sure. Yeah, it's going to be pretty bad too, because scalping isn't just that somebody goes to Best Buy and buys a bunch. It's that employees buy them. If you have 3 employees and one of your friends, and I've done this at my old job, where if you had a loyalty program offering, if 3 people weren't going to do it, I would pay them the money to do it so I could get whatever it was twice.
Yeah.
That's pretty normal. Not scalping, by the way, for everybody who's wondering if I was saying it wasn't that kind of thing. That'll happen too. Yeah, they'll be scalping, man. It's gonna be pretty rough, for sure. A1 Nangle says base system is going to be $650 or $700 depending on how you want to round it. Let's also real quick on the scalping thing or the price thing. Let's talk about the official price versus scalping, because that's cheap for a scalped system. And I think if somebody sees 700, they're going to be like, oh, well, that won't be too bad for a scalp system, when in the past we've seen some devices go for 3 times what they, do for retail. Anything else on the Switch? I'm looking here. Like I said, battery life, games. I've got Elden Ring. Like I said, I thought that was pretty cool. Some more games are being announced upcoming. Some games are at a lower price. DLSS ray trace, storage games, cards. We don't know about the tech. I guess that would be the last thing to talk about. We don't know anything about the APU itself yet.
Yeah, I think that was my biggest problem with the showcase. It was like, wait for sale, 5 out of 10, because it was also wait for data. We didn't really get any data about what's inside that thing.
Yeah.
We can maybe have a bit of an idea of, that it is significantly more powerful if it can run these games and can aim for 1080p. So that's good. But would have been nice to see hey, this is more or less what's in there.
Yeah. I was looking at what people were saying for games that looked exciting. I also saw that Dev Guy was saying Donkey Kong Let's Go, the environment destruction looks really good. Yeah, I still feel like Donkey Kong might have been my
Yeah, that looked really good.
Yeah, looked awesome. Looked great. Anybody in chat have any other questions before we moved on? Indio says those mini systems were scalped at 3 times the price for months. Yeah. Yeah, those
do you think you will,
or whatever they were called. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, do you think you will buy a Switch 2? Because you're really just into gear in general, like to experiment and everything.
I can tell you that in 10 years, I will for sure have a Switch 2. I just don't know minus that many years when I will have a Switch 2.
So that's similar to the delivery guy saying he will come today at some point.
I'm the Comcast delivery guy. I'll get there, and I'll get there on this date or at this price. I just don't think... I mean, Donkey Kong, tremendous looking. There's a lot of that kind of stuff. Some really tremendous looking games. It's definitely more powerful than the Switch 1, by a good amount. You can certainly see that. But it also is only aiming at 1080p, which is why you saw the 120 FPS, because there's going to be leeway there. Just have to wait and see. But overall, I like the idea. I just don't feel like I'm going to be able to buy it and be happy with what I get. I'm going to have to buy the add-on controllers. I'm going to have to... Do you see what I'm saying? It's not for me going to be one... It's going to be accessories. Yeah. Macon, $5 super chat. What's up, buddy? He says, I've been lied to before and won't let it happen again. I won't believe Hollow Knight Silk Song is out until 10 years after I beat it.
Yeah, so they showed that. They talked about it in the event too.
They talked about what? Because I didn't see that.
Silk Song.
Well, I mean, I know, but did they... Was there some promise? Did they drop a promise and say
No, it's all TBA still.
Yeah. That thing has been promised forever.
Yeah, it's like the last Guardian of recent years.
The last Guardian that sold a hell of a lot of PS3s before it came out on the PS4. Yeah, dude, I do remember that game. That game, there was a lot of unhappiness around that entire situation. And then a lot of people didn't like it. Some kind of
legendary dev cycle for that game.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, though, Macon. We'll just have to see. Nangle said, $5 super chat, my contribution to the Switch 2 slush fund. There you go. That was the other thing I was going to say is, buying it to do reviews on it and stuff like that will be somewhat of a high priority, but it also depends on... It is Nintendo, and I've been told directly. They were super nice about this. This is what they should do. This is the type of communication I do like. When I asked for a game recently... We'll say in the last 6 months, they were blatant. They were just definitely not on day one, but maybe later.
Oh,
and they were like, the way you talk is not, it doesn't fit
the brand or whatever.
And I'm like, you know what? I have no issues with that, none at all. I think that's exactly what you should do. It's just like any sports team. They may have certain sponsors. Maybe somebody doesn't want to do alcoholic beverages, whatever. If you tell somebody, dude. Hats off to you, because you're already better than 90% of the companies out there. So I have no issue with that. But third-party companies, by the way, they will. So when there's a third-party big title, I could review that day and date. I got Zelda. That was lucky. But for the most part, Switch was difficult.
So I guess you would be able to talk about the Switch version, maybe, in addition to
Oh, I'm sure I will.
PC
if there's
version,
if for example, Hitman, I could probably get Hitman for the Switch. Those type of games that aren't done by them. It's just when they're published by Nintendo and they're talking about chat and parental controls, and I'm
very selective.
I'm dropping, Jenna Hayes jokes. They're going to be like, Nah, that's
Yeah,
all right.
yeah, no,
That's okay, man. That's okay. We like you, but not that much. So, um, I can't read your username. It looks like it might be Ghostwire Ghoul. It's in weird
Ooh, yeah,
italicized. It says OG
fancy.
Donkey Kong Country on the SNES was one of the best gaming soundtracks ever made. We're going to talk about an amazing soundtrack here as we wrap up the Switch conversation too, because I want to talk about soundtracks and why they matter so much. Um, let's see. Anything else for Switch 2?
I think that's about it. I wanted to ask you about speakers. Do you think there's any chance there's going to be some better sound packed in that thing? Because especially compared to some of the newer portables, Switch One leaves a little bit to be desired on the.
Man,
It's also hard to do for that form factor.
it is, though. Third-party 3D printers have shown that channel systems that direct audio, and a porting style system, porting meaning you make a sealed subwoofer box and you can port it, you can tune it differently. Then there's also dual port, which is where the port goes into another sealed box and that can adjust it and sometimes add bass. There's certain things you can do. It's a little too fancy, obviously, for a Switch, but I already saw some 3D printables that work for the Legion. So the Legion speakers point straight out, and they're quiet overall. You can use FX Sound, which is a program for free, and you can get them louder, just like with Windows. Windows has a limit that's 100%. Many programs go above 100, and it won't destroy your speakers. It's just that they have a certain clip. I could see people making those. I don't see Switch. I don't see Nintendo doing anything special with theirs. I also don't really know when you're holding on to these handhelds where a speaker goes other than to the right and to the left of the screen, topmost, where it makes the most sense. The problem is it's very difficult to put those there because you have a lot of other hardware in that exact space,
And your screen is taking most of the real estate.
So if you want to put them up there, you've got buttons over here to worry about. You have a digital pad over here to worry about. But that is where I would like them if I had my druthers and it was like
because they can't be on the Joy-Cons, right? They have to be on the thing itself.
Your fingers would cover them. That's why I don't like them when they're low either, because they'll show them a lot of times down here, and by the time a normal person's player, the fat of their thumb is covering it. Yeah. Any thoughts on the lack of an achievement or trophy system still? Personally, no, I don't have any thoughts on that. I don't. I didn't even know so
they didn't have one. That's interesting.
Yeah, for people who want them, I would assume normal games will have them internally, as we've seen with a lot of games will do that. Nintendo doesn't seem to have bought off at all on an exterior, overarching, tracked achievement system.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, at all. It doesn't seem to be their thing. So we'll just have to see. Moving on for a bit from there, I reviewed South of Midnight, and I have to say, this soundtrack, so eclectic. I just don't know if people are going to like it, but I loved it. There is something in the soundtrack that speaks to me on two levels. One, distasteful, unrhythmic, unrhyming vocals are so distracting, and that's what this game has. But that being said, every single song in the game is about the enemy you're facing in that level or about the world, and that is fucking phenomenal.
That's cool.
Dude, there's a bad guy you're fighting, and in the background you hear children's voices saying his name, just repeating it. It is haunting as fuck. And then they'll sing when you double jump. So you're jumping, and they'll be like, "Ha," when you do the first jump, and then when you do a double jump, you'll hear them go like, "Ha ha ha," and that shit is ace.
So
man.
Like that's fully dynamic.
And
wow.
And when you're going up and you're facing like a boss, there's this huge climb I did, and they were like, you could hear them whispering his name because you find out sort of what type of bad guy he is, let's say. And I don't even want to say it because that would spoil. It's very hard to not spoil who this is or who these are because their names are sort of right there when you hear it, like Ghost, we'll say. So if it was Ghost and his name was Jeremy, they figure out a way to have the vocals with not the song part yet, but just the vocals. They're whispering like Jeremy, It is fucking. It's not scary, but it's tense as shit.
It's
That
a
is
cool
awesome.
idea. I
Oh,
don't think I've seen that
it's fucking
done in that
fantastic.
way.
And it's all about you hearing the spirits. That's what the entire game's about. But then they do a song. And this is like, I guess you could say it's pretty improv in its sound, but it's not at the same time. It doesn't have the like do do doom da doom da doom. It's not that kind of improv. But the wording and stuff, they're not about rhyme, they're about telling a story. So imagine almost a spoken word, almost a haiku at times, a poem at times, but no rhyming in it. You almost, there's one song that has rhyming and then a couple don't. And so sometimes you're just sitting there going like, I love this, but it doesn't have the Red Dead 1 feel. Red Dead 1 is sort of to me, the apex of you're riding a horse at the end of the game, and it was very melodic, and it came out of nowhere. It had never been done in that game, and it was like boom, they're singing a song and you're riding the horse. You're going, oh shit, like this is this the end? What exactly is going on?
You know what it reminded me of watching a review? Metallica did an album with Lou Reed, which was very eclectic. He's almost speaking instead of singing. Right. And it had like a similar cadence to what I saw in your review, reminded me of that. But it was a bit off-putting, I admit, because also the voice was very loud compared to the instrumentation. So it was very invasive.
It is.
But it was also interesting. Like,
you can turn it down.
You will remember it.
You will remember it, yeah. I remember the whispering and the spirits. Like when you call the spirit guide to tell you where to go, they say Hazel, which is your character's name. They're like, Hazel, over here. That is awesome.
Almost a Hellblade.
That stuff is great. Yeah, that stuff was great. And there were a couple songs that I really thought were great, but they were definitely on the far end of eclectic. I mean, they were well off the beaten path. And I just think a lot of people who are playing it will be like, ooh, that feels, like they'll like it.
Off-putting maybe.
But it may be just out of place. Yeah, it may be out of place. I think it's phenomenal. I wouldn't want it changed. Like, I legitimately am fine with that. I'm even fine without the rhyming, because the one or two where they do rhyme in a more traditional pattern, it was fine. But the ones that weren't rhyming, I listened to harder because I couldn't guess the word they were going to say. You know how if you know the general theme of a song, like if it's an emo song and a person's sitting there going like, I'm not good enough for her and she left me behind and my clothes are in the fucking front yard. Yeah. If they say, you're a wandering bard, the next thing will be your clothes are in the yard. Like there's just certain words where hopefully nobody ever uses that. That sounds like something from Nickelback, but you get my drift. This doesn't do that. So I paid attention more. But yeah, South of Midnight, dude, there's some parts of that game that was awesome. The combat was great until it wasn't. It works really well, but the last quarter of that game, those guys must have seen a lot of X-Men movies because there's so many Stinger style, just one more thing. Just one more. And I'm telling you, I was running, just going, please don't let there be one more thing. You guys have nailed it. You've got it. You know what you're doing. You've hit it. Please wrap it up, because if you wrap it up, it's going to rock. Johnny, it didn't. It ends, and I legitimately put the controller down and went like, oh, it ended on a down, not a down note. Yeah, it overstayed. And then instead of a crescendo and then ending, it goes like boom, 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 right, and then ends right here before going up again. It was that time where I'm like, because they're editing for 3/4 of the game, some of the best editing I've seen in a game. It was always moving forward. It's like, go forward, do here, like find this story
and stuff.
Everything. Yeah, the pacing, the story, everything. It was like boom, 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 moving forward, running, combat's here, moving out of that combat, going in here, learn a little bit about the story, defeat the boss, go to the next. And then that last fourth was like platform, and then platform some more. It was like Jedi Survivor condensed, because like Jedi Survivor is really a Mario game. It's barely even at all a Jedi game. And that sort of happens here, where you've got this power that Hazel has, you've got all the upgrades, and yet the game, at times you distinctly feel, because you're fighting major characters and bosses that don't react to many of those skills, which are more useful during small encounters and during the normal guys. So when you get a new move and you go to a boss who is impervious to said move, you're like, why did I get it right now? What am I supposed to do with this if the major event, it can't be utilized in the proper way? That being said, man, phenomenal animation most of the time. Really good audio. Really good. Whitest audio I think I've ever heard for an Echo in my life. Like, you go out into a place and sounds happen, and it's got this amazing airy feeling where you can still hear the spoken word, but it's got that you're talking in a valley, kind of just like roar, roar,
Yeah.
roar, roar. And then it tightens back down when you're in smaller places. But yeah, dude, it's great to see a game based in the South too, because I mean, you could count that on, I mean, maybe one hand, I think, for games where like they're hitting Southern style myths, ghosts, or what have you. So that part of it was phenomenal. Like, I was super excited to play that part.
What did you make of the lower frame rate sections?
I turned off the lower version of the frame rate. You have a on or off. When I did that, it was fine. It was noticeable, but I grew up where stop motion wasn't completely unknown to people. Now, when I talk to any of you guys in Discord and I mention Clash of the Titans, do you know what you're going to say? You're going to think the new one with the Avatar guy. You're not going to think of the old one with the stop motion, you know, what was it, Harryhausen, is that his name? But the original guys who did stop motion, you're not going to think of those things. You're going to think of the current one, which wasn't stop motion. Stop motion just isn't as big anymore. And even when it does come back, most people think what I thought when I saw it, low FPS. And I think it's pretty much proof that's not what was going on. When you turn it off, you're like, oh, for the most part, other than some drops here and there, it actually isn't low FPS. It's just their choice, and their choice was not good. Their choice did not help it. In fact, it really, I think it hindered the presentation, and worse so, I think it hindered most likely the uptake from consumers, the desire for a lot of consumers to get it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Well, listen, at least you can turn that down.
Yeah, you can turn it down, which helps dude, I couldn't describe to you how much it helps, because when it's fully on, they've got this, I think they've got the sample at like 12. I did a video on this a couple weeks ago, and I at that time I knew because I'd talked to him. I think it was 12, and now it goes up to like 24, which is fine. You know, it's like a podcast kind of thing. It's a little bit noticeable, and they all look like they're made from chiseled, you know, clays and woods, which I really liked. There were some scary parts. I guess scary may not be the word, but I'll use it. There were some parts on it that were pretty creepy that I thought were very well done. It's also a dire-ass game. The best part of the game and the happiest part of the game is most likely when somebody's not dying. It's just mostly bad. It's mostly bad stuff that's happening. It's mostly sorrow.
So it's not like a fairy tale.
It is not
vibe.
Yeah, it is not. It's definitely more of the dark fairy tale, Brothers Grimm kind of fairy tale.
Yep.
I'm going to teach you a lesson kind of fairy tale. Also, a bunch of stuff about mistakes people make and the problems people create for themselves. And I got to tell you, I got no issue with that, but at the same time, I get a little bit. I do think games need to have a little bit of redemption. The ending does do this, but I think during the times you're trying to destroy these bad feelings that have basically fucked up the universe by warping and knotting up reality, because like sorrow is heavy. So imagine gravity, like we talk about, you know, warping of space-time. This tapestry is the universe. When you have enough sorrow that's heavy on somebody, enough bad things on your shoulders, you can knot up reality. And her job is to go in there and cut it up and remake it. Basically stitch it back together with that negativity gone. So you have to take these actions to get the negativity to go away, to sort of put the spirits at rest or beat the shit out of them. Whichever you want to describe. I just wish it was a little bit happy-go-lucky at times, because it's like after the fourth or fifth guy who's done something horrendous, by the way, these are not small things. Like there was one in there where I was actually a little nervous about throwing the footage in, because I was like, they're going to think like this is going to get dinged on multiple levels, whether it be child abuse, whether it be some other stuff. It's pretty dark. It's pretty dark. There is not a time in that game where I was like, man, this southern lifestyle is good. Instead, I was like, damn, man. I mean, come on. Can somebody do a fucking good thing in this universe?
Can we get a break here?
Can we get a break? Yeah. So, yes,
interesting.
It's well worth it on Game Pass. I absolutely think if you have Game Pass and you don't get this, even if you don't think you'll like it, it is well worth trying out because it is beautiful at times. Absolutely gorgeous. There are times where I was playing that game and I was just like, dude, games have gone so far to show us. Like Fable. Fable's coming out someday in the future. Fable had really good linear style paths. That's what this game has. Linear, then you go into a battle like a Devil May Cry. That kind of shit is what this game does phenomenally well. Until the last 85%. But up until that point, and it's got it's so lax on its platforming, Johnny. This is like grandma's first platforming game. This is like something that grammars who maybe has a bit of the shakes, maybe can't remember a little bit about her kids' names, could play and
forgot how to jump midway.
Forgot how to jump, but it's got this. It's got this fluidity and sort of lack. It's not about crackerjack timing. It's not about making sure that you're penalized. It is a forward-moving story, and that's where I got to give them their fucking credit. It also went forever, Johnny. Like, this is a long game for this type of game. For this type of game, I was at like the 10th or 11th hour going, what in the fuck? This is
Are we
big.
Done here? Or
yeah,
what?
Are we? And that was before I was even going wrap it up. This is when I was playing going, that's like, and I did some exploring. If the game says go right, I would go left, look around for some stuff because you can get some extra skill points and shit like that. But yeah, man, hats off to him because, dude, music, audio, a altered presentation, I could see not appealing to people, but did over time appeal to me. And the combat is just, the stuff you get is great for a while and then becomes almost unusable. And I think that really hurt it. You really don't want to end a game in the fashion I ended that game. I can say that. I ended that on a downer on the combat side and on the story side going, they just almost hit it. But I will say this, forewarned. Now that I've told people, hopefully, if you're aware that, you can enjoy that 85%. Maybe you don't even agree with me. You enjoy the 85% and you have yourself a great time. Like, and I think that could work. Dev Guy says we need an Injustice game and then says I meant Justified. Okay, those are opposite as all belief, by the way. We need an Injustice game. Oh, actually, I'm in Justified. We do need a Justified game. Yes, that would be amazing.
I'm trying to think what it would be. Would it be like a more narrative one?
If they did an Expanse style Telltales game, but you're Raylan doing the side stories of Raylan, dude,
absolutely.
Would I be there? I'd be there times 10. I would play that game until the end of time. Yeah, I would be all over that game. Jeff Reyes says, is the music song thing that they talked about overblown? No, I would say it's blown. It is as big as they say. It's just that it requires you to either like the musical style already, come to like it, or accept that it's playing regardless. It's a prison song. It's going to happen. You might as well just let it happen. It's going to be there.
Oh, just think of a nice place.
Think of a nice place.
It will be over soon.
Yeah.
I sometimes I find myself enjoying music that I don't like.
Absolutely.
But in the context of a game, it makes sense, right? Like Cyberpunk had some terrible radio music, in my opinion, like just based on what I listened to.
Yes.
But in the context of the game, hey, awesome. Right, builds the setting because everybody has that.
Cyberpunk
sort of
is such a good example.
Ugly ass aesthetic.
Yeah, you hit it on the nose with Cyberpunk because there are times in Cyberpunk where I was, oh my god, I hated some of that music. Not all of it, but there was good section of that where I was like,
a lot of it was harsh, really on purpose, right? Like the guitar sounds all over the place and stuff.
Yeah. Flexi Mecha says, have you finished Atomfall? I haven't. My system is basically completely incompatible with that still to this day. It does not, it will crash so fast when I'm trying to play that game. But we got people who beat it, who love it, and it seems like it seems like my preview of it is exactly what we got with the review, and I really like the preview. It's definitely my style of game. Are you going to do that one, Johnny?
No, probably not. I didn't like the combat very much,
Yeah.
based on what I saw in your preview and stuff.
That's fair.
So I wasn't too interested. I liked some things, like the presentation looked fun and interesting. The voicings looked great, and then the inventory system looked interesting too. Like the way you manage things and upgrade and stuff, that looked cool. But I didn't really like the moment to moment based on what I saw too much.
Yeah. Got a DM from Maddie, says, "Hey, love you guys. I want to know how long it is that you guys have known one another, and did it start prior to the podcast?" Yes. It did start prior to the podcast, right? I mean,
yes.
Right?
So talking about you and I, we met in your Discord, of course. I was just another fan. Joined the Discord, the Patreon and stuff. And I think the first time I talked with you might have been either in a regular voice chat or in a board game session.
Tabletop simulator, maybe?
Tabletop.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might have been.
Yeah.
It might have been.
Yeah, and it's been, I want to say, 9 years?
Yeah. Yeah,
probably?
it's been 8 or 9
around
for sure.
2016, maybe.
He's been around longer than my pappy. I'm just joking.
Silver has been around, I think, since the dawn of your channel, hasn't he?
Yeah, Silver was probably already, sitting on the ACG URL. He's been around for a long time, because Reg was the one who told me about Discord. Because we were all
Reg
using...
had like the first message.
He did, and we were all using Patreon like Discord. Because we were all just like, there was no way to chat normally in that, so I was just like, okay, let's just talk in here, and we kept talking in here, and then and I think I didn't like Slack even back then, or maybe it was another one of them that I didn't like, and then Reg was like, well, we could try this Discord thing, and I was all, okay, walk me through setting it up. He didn't have to; it was pretty easy, and we got it set up, and then he was one of the first people to post, and then Go Burns would have been generically like right at that point, because Go Burns was on the podcast before it was named, when it was just a bunch of us sitting around talking about, some random game. And then Absy was same. Absy was on Discord, or sorry, on Patreon a bunch, and then jumped into Discord as well. Yeah, so most of them have all been. Yeah. So somehow we like each other enough to, stick around, which is weird.
True.
Yep. I mean, hey, something to be said for it. What else do you got for news? I know you said you hadn't found anything. Have you found anything? The last hour or so as I've been jabberjawing it up? Any cool...
Honestly, no, not much. I just saw Monster Hunter Wilds got an update, and they got a tougher version of one of the monsters. So there's that. But I don't believe we have yet any new monsters or the hub. So all of that is coming soon. But yeah, we don't have that yet.
Yeah. SBZ says, I was there when ACG was on Twitch. That was after I was already on YouTube for like 5 years.
Yeah.
Back in the Twitch days, emotes flashing on the screen. Boy, did I hate Twitch's back end. And just the way the chat works on Twitch. Much happier with it here. What were you going to say? Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's about it. Yeah, I've been looking, but I haven't found any specific news that...
Well, I've got some stuff then. First is Enjoy. So we've gone back and forth on how this is supposed to be pronounced. Right? Sales milestone, they hit 1 million already. And, really happy for that game. I think that game is highly enjoyable and a good general competitor for Sims. I think it's great to have a competitor for Sims. They've done well. It's got some issues here and there with controls, little stuff. But overall, highly enjoyable game.
I have to admit, I thought it was like a gimmick that they were just showing some stuff that looked really good but wasn't representative of the game.
Right.
But the more I see about it, it looks like, no, that's the game. And there's even more than I expected. So
yeah. Yep, it turned out well, and better graphics or better FPS than I thought. Not perfect by any means, but better than I was expecting. Yeah. Also, there's 2 rumors. We're going to talk first about the rumor for Black Flag. So there's been continual rumors and all this stuff. There was a leaked picture, I guess, a couple days ago for a possible Black Flag remake of some kind from Ubisoft. I guess my question to you is, if you had your druthers, what would be the would Black Flag be the game that you would want to see them remake into? It probably won't be in today's mold. I really do mean a remake, whatever their old style was, closer to Mirage than it is Shadows or Odyssey or Origins. Is there a game from them that you personally would like to see more than? I mean, does Black Flag interest you as a remake?
It does. I think it's in a good sweet spot where the game is old enough that it could really benefit from a glow up.
Right.
Whereas other games that I've liked more, like Syndicate, still look pretty good.
Right.
So
right there
that's a game you can, so that's a game you can play today, and it will look pretty solid overall. So if you tell me you're making a remake of that game, I think that makes sense. Personally, it wasn't my favorite at all. I didn't like the story very much.
Right.
I like the ship combat well enough, but I don't think it compensated for some of the other stuff that I liked more in other games. I think my favorite older one was probably AC2. I think that was
going back. Okay, gotcha.
Ezio, I believe. I believe that was his. That was a fantastic story. That would be cool to see if they did a solid remake of that. That's what I would say. Yeah, I would go old on that because some of the recent ones are still pretty good to play. I played Syndicate recently. Looked great.
Yeah, I watched Amudski play all the way through it in streaming, and that one was just new enough to feel that it may not require it. Where I would agree with you that Black Flag's probably one of the first ones, and you can't, dude, you're never gonna not make me feel like Black Flag was Origins 0.5. Black Flag was bloated more than the others. It did have all this other shit going on. It definitely, to me, feels far closer to the new games than anybody wants to admit. Like, there's something about Black Flag where Syndicate actually still felt older style, even though the combat was super fast comparatively. It still felt like the older style. Beastie by Nature, $5 super chat. Much love to you guys. Please remind the chat to like and comment on the video so we can get our Overlord character to the heights of YouTube. Yes, please do. I would absolutely appreciate it. Though, weirdly enough, the channel's been doing really well. Normal channel, moving this podcast off. I don't push the podcast channel enough. So yes, very much so. Especially when this gets over, if you guys get a chance to leave a comment. I've noticed that is massively helpful for sort of getting YouTube by the balls. Woodpit 420 says the graphics are pretty dated now. Jeff says, I wish they'd remake the first few AC games because I never played them and people really seem to love them. Curtis says, I played Black Flag a few days ago and it didn't gel with me. That's fair. Packley says, Assassin's Creed 2 is infamous. I was hyped from the reveal trailer and the game was just okay. Interesting. That's not a hot take, but it's certainly on the lesser side from what I usually hear. I would actually probably agree that Assassin's Creed 2, while enjoyable, I wasn't as... Those games really do hinge on the storyline and the character. And if that character doesn't gel with you as much, it's very easy to fall out of favor with those games, Yeah. I've noticed it with Shadows. People are very happy with Shadows. I've seen a lot of people like it, even more than me. But, I wasn't a big fan of the story. It wasn't that I needed them to be like, we're going to treat you like a female in our society, or we're going to treat you like a black man in our society. I didn't need that kind of angsty stuff. I just needed them to be a little bit more in it, to like a little bit more oomph to their story, which I felt Shadows didn't have. But Shadows gameplay is... I really like. So it was just happens with a lot of these. Happened with, did you like Origins? Because man, I did not like Origins story at
I didn't like the character. My biggest problem was I didn't like what's his name? Bayek. But I liked the location a lot. I really enjoyed exploring that and like
good times,
going to the pyramids, everything. That was really good.
Yeah. Those were great times. Cantankerous Goat says too much boat stuffs in Black Flag. He doesn't like the boat stuff. I did have
a bug in Shadows where I was supposed to chase a guy down in the mission, and what happened is he got to where he's supposed to get,
right,
but it didn't trigger the next part. which would be that the NPC that gave me the quest would like capture him or like stop him and chat and kick off a cinematic. It just
Ouch.
never happened. And I was completely stuck there. So I needed to like reload a prior save. So some scripting didn't work there.
Mm.
But outside of that, it's been a really polished game for the size of the world and everything. So I've been really impressed with that. And I would say I was worried initially because people told me, some people told me I'm 25 hours in and I don't have the other character.
Mm-hmm.
I was worried about that because I wanted to play as both, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that would really hurt the experience. But I have to say that really depends what you're prioritizing in terms of missions. I got it like within 10, 12 hours. So it was not, and I was screwing around too. So it's not like I was gold pathing. And I got him fairly early. So I do think, yeah, people, follow the main story if you feel like you want to
unlock him.
It goes pretty quick, yeah, once you go down the main story. So that was really nice. I agree with you. I'm not really feeling the story so far. It's pretty slow for sure. And I'm not seeing any deep motivations like we talked about. It's kind of your cookie cutter revenge story. And the link between Yasuke, is it Yasuke and Naue?
And Naue.
Is very tenuous.
Yeah.
It's pretty much like plot convenience that they decide to stick together and like group up without going into details and stuff. I just didn't really buy that they would do that or that it would make sense for them to team up. Now, I liked it because I love, when people team up and it's like, ooh, okay, we got a gang, right? So that's cool. But it didn't quite make sense to me. So, yeah, on the story side, I think it's a bit weak compared to some others. But I'm liking it in the immersive thing where they speak Japanese. For some reason, it makes it a little bit more, I don't know, cinematic maybe, or like just the sounds are a bit different. So I stay interested too because I have to read the subs. Overall, it's a solid game. It's just not the greatest in terms of like storytelling and pacing.
Yeah, I was fine. So to not even disagree, but to agree that the way it is delivered is pretty much exactly as you said. I sort of liked that it is her story and he is helping along. There's a reason why. I feel that if you do Jacob and Evie, one reason why it worked very well in Syndicate was because technically they were somewhat the same, but there were these dueling philosophies that they had. But overall, the skills and what they did were generally the same. This is completely different, right? Each person's skills and abilities are different. They can do different things in a different way. They look different. There's an overall general there's a very nice delineating line between the two. Personally, I liked that it was more like I'm the leader. She is the leader. That's what I took from it. She's the charismatic one. She's the one that has the base before he's even there, but he is the militant sort of right hand of God type of thing. And what I took from it was he worked for the Emperor. Now he does Shogun, sorry, and he doesn't now. Now he works for her in somewhat the same overall style. So I actually really liked the way it works. It's just I do wish that both had they had a little bit more. And this has happened with other Assassin's Creeds too. By the way, it happens with a lot of third-person open-world games because I think the common denominator isn't an Assassin's Creed game. It's a third world. It's a third-person open-world game where this seems to rear its ugly head because they have to force you through things, they have to adjust things, and in a way, Shadows gives you almost too much freedom at points to where if a little freedom was knocked off, it might feel a little bit more directed. But I gotta say, I'm actually pretty happy with how it went overall, and the gameplay is way better than I expected for sure. Definitely better than any of the others in this new series, and I didn't think combat was the premier part of the old ones anyway. So I don't even really compare it to the old ones. And as a fan of Syndicate, I feel that was probably the best or most fun in general fun kind of game of like combat gameplay. It's just enjoyable and fun. It wasn't necessarily the most discreet or certainly the highest of a technical aspect, but yeah, it's definitely a different game, man. It's very cool to see that do well as well. Like honestly to see that do well, because I know a lot of people liked it way more than me. I mean, I liked it, but it's like to see a lot of people, they're like, dude, this I mean, in our Discord even, people are like, holy shit, I never thought in a million years I would be still playing an Assassin's Creed game. And some of those guys are fans, some aren't, and yet they both are like, holy shit, I'm still playing this game. Like, I'm absolutely having a blast. That's nice because we're living in Tariffsville. So getting your most out of the money that you put down is going to be even more vital and important than pretty much anything here moving forward, I feel. Black Flag gets good when you get your ship and crew. How many times do we hear that now? This gets good when...
That's good.
Imagine if you had your honeymoon period in a relationship 3 years in, how shitty of a relationship that would be.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I mean, that's the way people describe games. Be like, it gets good 15 hours in. Death Stranding gets good, at the end credits, whatever. But it's odd that with games basically saying you're going to have your honeymoon period, the period you enjoy after many hours of tedium it's weird. It's weird. It's like imagine reading a book and you're like, yeah, man, first 30% of this I absolutely hated. The middle part was great. And then after a while, we solidified our relationship and we just sort of slid into home base. You're like, I don't know if I'd want to fucking read that book. I don't know if that's something I would enjoy. Next up, Oblivion. So, I guess this morning, Oblivion's trailers were removed on Steam database. This is what one of the guys told me in Discord. There's been a bunch of rumors about an Oblivion remake as well. Does an Oblivion remake entice you?
I think so. I never played it, actually.
Never played it at all?
So it would be, yeah.
Okay.
So it would be a good opportunity for like people like me who haven't had a chance. Because let's be honest, right now, it looks pretty dated.
Oh, dude. It's gone far past the word dated. I don't even know what you call that game now. But
some faces are just hauntingly...
Yeah, they're bad. They're bad.
Yeah, they're bad.
So you never played it at all? Didn't turn it on? Didn't... Okay. So to you, a remake, this would be your first anything with this game?
Yeah, be my first contact with it.
What about chat? What do you guys think of an Oblivion remake? I don't know, man. I feel like, I guess I just need to see it. It's an odd game to remake because I feel like it's still, it's 360 era. It certainly looks terrible now. But I sort of
do the game systems seem like solid for nowadays?
No, they weren't even solid. So Oblivion is a really, truly weird game because Oblivion might have been one of the very first true examples of where graphics sold a lot of people. And then after a while, those, especially a big game like this, after a while, those issues cropped up because I don't think you could say Morrowind looked amazing. It did some amazing stuff. Daggerfall did some amazing stuff, but Oblivion sort of caught a hype train on the consoles when it was first, or on the console when it was first shown. There was this sort of explosion of thought process behind that game, and yet behind the scenes there was a great deal of problems all over the place. Where I feel like if it's remade, there's been some rumors that they're adjusting the way skills work and all that kind of stuff. That's actually what's most interesting to me, because how do you adjust it and have it still be like, let's say, quote unquote, a Bethesda
recognizable?
Yeah. So it'll be highly advantageous for them to figure out a way to get it to appeal to older and newer fans, but it will also, that is going to be hyper difficult. So I'm excited to check it out. I mean, when and if it happens, but I don't know, man. There was a lot of stuff I loved in Oblivion. I mean, loved. But there was a lot of times when you'd look at the same moon-faced freak for the 40th time, and his face was glowing and the world was glowing, and you were just sitting there going, all I really want to do is go into another dungeon to get away from all this ugliness and bad voice acting and, you know, all this shit. Terrible story, very typical, really boring story, and go to the general combat. And then the problem with the combat was it was scaled, so it was handled differently, and so even that was a little troublesome. I'm excited. I mean, hey, if it comes out, like I'm all for, I'll definitely check it out. It's just I feel like that's one of the more difficult ones to remake. I mean, Skyrim would be easier, but that's because they've done 55
and it's huge, right?
It.
As a game.
Skyrim or Oblivion's pretty big. Yeah, Oblivion's pretty big. Not as big as, like, you know, a Daggerfall, but that ain't getting remade, I don't think. If it did, that would be a time where you would see me probably not do a video or two because I was playing a game.
Yeah.
Like legitimately ever. Yeah. Daggerfall, technically what it did and what it caught from me, it's what got me into PC gaming day one. Like it is what rolled me into PC gaming, or understanding that PC gaming is something I wanted to add on top of the console stuff. Yeah, I would lose my shit if they were like, hey, here's Daggerfall. It looks like a current game, but it's Daggerfall, even with the bad story and the stilted, all that. Yeah. I would take some days off from work, that's for sure. Let's see. Never played Oblivion. Would play it if it actually looks good versus just being hyped by nostalgia. Yeah. Can I just have a new Elder Scrolls? Yes, you can, Nangle. That'll come in about 19 years. Be prepped, man. Get ready. Get your stuff ready. Get some sandwiches ready. Kel says, I played Oblivion at launch, and I've never felt the desire to go back. It didn't leave the impact of Morrowind, so I doubt I'll pick it up. Eternal says, high-end tech isn't why people like Nintendo. It's the family-friendly characters, carefree vibes, and well-polished gameplay-centric games. They also support co-op better than most. I agree with all that, but I'm questioning the supporting co-op more than most. I feel like especially because their prior systems didn't have 90% of the systems in line to like even really engage in true co-op. Like voice chat and shit. I don't know. That's up in the air. That's a different one. P-Bo Jam says, same as Johnny, never played it. Alonzo says, Oblivion would be great depending on how much work went into remaking it and tweaking the combat. What if there was none? No work. Like we get it and it's just Oblivion in a wrapper so that it boots. You're just like, oh, okay, there's no work. No work has been done. We'll have to see how this works out. But yeah, I'm excited for it. Hey, it is what it is. It's good to get new shit. How long have we got here? How long have we been going? Dude, we've been going for 2 hours.
Or about 2 hours.
Do we have anything
I
new
saw
in gaming? Go for it. Go for it.
So I wanted to bring up Doom again. So
Doom.
I saw some extra footage
Sorry.
from Doom Dark Ages.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I have a better idea of what it is now, which is more of like a bullet hell type game.
Mm-hmm.
So they also do have gap closing, which is something I expected. So that was cool to see. You do have the ability to kind of like jump onto enemies, gap close and stuff.
Continue talking. I'm going to grab it. Rockstar. Not sponsored by Rockstar. Because it's actually not a Rockstar, it's a Monster. So if I was sponsored by him, that was a terrible sponsor. Continue.
Terrible. But it very much looks like a huge focus on the bullet hell aspect, dodging projectiles, and then depending on the color of the projectile, you're supposed to either dodge it or parry it back, and then use that to blow up enemies. And enemies are pretty much immune to your bullets until you do some of these things. Like parrying projectiles into them. This is something that like blows up their armor in some way.
Okay.
So that it then makes them vulnerable. So I kind of hate it. Because I think like the essence of what I loved was just being fast and effective. Because sure, you had a lot of enemies coming at you, but you could kill them as fast as they came. And now it's going to be much more methodical. It's going to be very reactionary too. So you're waiting for the green projectile or something to then send it back and then you can use your ammo on the enemy. I think that's almost like cock blocking. I want to just go, you know? I don't know. How do you feel about
I
the
feel
bullet
exactly
hell
the
angle?
same. I mean, there was a Dreamcast game like Ikagaru or Ikakarugi or some fucking old game that had you could only
Yeah, Ikaruga or something.
you
I
could
know
only
it.
like dodge one kind of bullet and the other one you could get hit by or whatever, and you could switch the way you were, I think, and so the other bullets now wouldn't hit you, whatever. I kind of hate it too. However, I kind of hate it only because I haven't had hands on and I can't draw a comparison between the prior gameplay. I will say this. This is a much larger change than doing some fucking swinging in Doom Eternal, right? Like, so,
Yep.
in fact, it is a massive change. So if you take Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal over here, and Doom Eternal is a little bit to the right, a little gapped from Doom, this one is well over here. I kind of hate your description of it, is what I mean.
Yeah.
If it, so, and I'm not saying, I'm just saying the way you described it, that certainly is like, you know, like
Yeah.
distaste. It's almost like if somebody tells you that certain parts of a sandwich, sometimes you just want to eat the sandwich. I just need to play this fucking thing. Because I don't know. Until I play it and see, that could be exactly what I wanted. It could be exactly what I wanted. There are parts of it I thought looked really cool. But at the same time, and this is going to be definitely on the outlier, I have not ever found the trailers or the premiere stuff of the Doom games to ever do a very good job of showing the way I feel when playing them. So when I saw the preview for Doom 2016, the video preview, when I saw the video preview for Doom Eternal, and no matter how much footage they showed, it didn't do a good job of representing how much I enjoyed them when I played them. Nor did it do a good job of the feeling, the visceral feeling, the speed at which you need to move, the sort of, there's almost a joy in movement in the Doom games. Doom gets off on your character almost having, I used to joke about it, but poo-poo parkour. Like it's like pew-pew parkour. That's what you're doing. You're shooting and scooting. You're not stopping like gears. You're consistently moving, even in Eternal. This one seems to be opposite of that. And they seem to be very methodical in systems. I just need to try it. But their trailer didn't do anything for me at all. That is not unusual, though, because the prior trailers did not, they just showed shit blowing up. And that can look so mind-numbing. You're like, but when you play it, they nailed that. So I have a lot of confidence that they can nail whatever they're trying to do. Whether that turns out to be something I want to continue playing, I don't know. I don't like your description of it, though. I do not like that. What you described did not, that was distaste from the moment you started talking to the end. So, like, I need to try it, to see if the description is off, if that's all the time, how that works. Yeah, it's a weird one, man.
There's also something about a couple games have been doing this where, depending on the color of an attack or a projectile, you're supposed to do one thing or another.
Right.
Even Shadows does this, where if it's blue, you're supposed to parry. If it's red, you're supposed to dodge. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just not a very big fan of that type of. I prefer having a distinctly type of attack altogether. So, like, for example, when sometimes you have like an unblockable attack and then you have something big on screen, and that's like, that one you need to get out of dodge somehow.
Right.
But that everything else you can either parry or dodge, you can kind of pick and choose. I don't like this thing where, like, I need to do a specific action based on what color the projectile ball is. I'm not a big fan. It could be because, again, I am a bit colorblind, so maybe it's just my struggle with not being super confident with the colors. But
I think it's also the idea that Doom, by its sheer name, has always been about balls to the wall. It's like every single step you take, there's an enemy firing into the space you just inhabited. And I love that. There's something sexual almost about the movement in Doom where you know that even a single stutter, bumping into a rock, whatever, may end up either dooming you, pun intended, or getting you hit, right? There's something that is, you hear me talk about it in almost every game. If a game moves forward, I talked about in South of Midnight, I love the moving forward kind of gameplay. I love it in Doom. And Eternal fucked with it a little bit. But they still made it generally moving forward while swinging. So you were still sort of moving forward. The idea of playing fucking tennis where somehow one tennis ball, depending on its color, passes through my racket does not entice me. Does that mean I will dislike it? No. Does it mean it won't be my favorite Doom game? No. It's just that what you're describing to me is as unappealing as humanly possible for a Doom game. It is insanely unappealing. Like the idea that suddenly my racket will just not hit the fucking ball. And I know that that's not a direct correlation to what you said, but in the same way, that is not what I was looking for. It doesn't mean they won't be right. Doom 2016 had some stuff that I was like, that'll be weird. We'll have to see. And it worked gloriously. And Doom Eternal, same way. I liked Doom Eternal at times, and I got some heat for this. There were parts of Doom Eternal I liked more than Doom 2016. As a whole game, probably not so much, but there were things that I liked in Doom Eternal a lot. However, I will say this. I think we probably know that this was going to happen because when you played Doom Eternal, you could already sense they were trying some oddities with the Marauder, which, by the way, is pretty universally disliked. Like, I mean, if you went online, you would hear people be like, why did that feel so weird? Compared to everything else, it didn't feel, and maybe you enjoyed it one or two times, but after a while, you're like, there's something that just feels like it was almost like an experiment that didn't work out, and luckily that experiment didn't take over the lab. This could be that experiment taking over the lab where they want that extra bit. Maybe they feel that they need to do that to appeal to the current gamer, that they need complexity or a little bit more complexity than they did. But I do think it's weird that you'll be like, how in the fiction, you don't have to sell this in a fiction, by the way, but I sort of want it. How in the fiction does red hit me and blue doesn't, or something? Or do you know what I mean? Like, I will need something there. Like maybe they'll say it's different hell powers. Like maybe it's just like infernal, which is red, hits you this way, cold or sorrow or whatever, which is blue, hits you this way. I'll be like, okay, whatever. You know, you sold me. You know, I'll take it. But we just have to see, man.
Yeah.
Just have to see.
Let's give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
And say, hopefully they will have something like that.
Doom 3 was kind of scary when I played it as a kid. Oh, Doom 3's got some scary shit, man. Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, Doom 3, I mean, Doom was they're dark games. Doom and Quake both are aimed at a darker overall style.
Sure.
I really enjoyed
You're literally fighting demons, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can't get much darker than that unless you're supernatural and you just make up a whole new other evil creature to kill the demons and the angels, and you do a season of it, and then after you go back and everybody pretends that season doesn't exist. Can you tell I didn't like that season of Supernatural? Probably. Also got some news
didn't
here.
You say
it is my favorite now because I know what you're going to say.
You did like it later. Yeah.
But I will tell you, maybe perhaps like this new Doom, boy, did I not like it day one. Like I was, bro, I don't even want to get into that discussion because it's a long one and it is exactly sort of what we're talking about, the expectations versus saddling back with what you got and the acceptance of being like, okay, maybe, but it took me 4 years to go back. And I don't mean like they were enticing me. I just mean for 4 years, I wasn't I was like, if that's the way they're going, it's not enticing to me, whatever. And then I went back and liked it. I needed some distance from it. I think we have distance from this Doom. Doom Eternal was 5 years ago, right? 5. We're in 2025. Doom Eternal was, it's got to be 5 years.
Yeah.
That's some good distance.
I think so.
That's some good distance. There's also some news that popped. I just got a DM of this. According to sources, Eidos Montreal was pitching. Wait a minute. Let me read this. Okay. Fuck, I hate this. I hate this breaking shit. This is why normally I don't like to read breaking news. Basically, breaking news is possibly, maybe, perhaps, but probably not. There might have been a new Deus Ex game that was being pitched somewhere. Whatever. I hate that shit because it's like everything sounds so concrete in your YouTube whatever, or in your thumbnail or in your title, and then you read it and you're like, seriously, dude, why even write that? That's straight up just bullshit.
Yeah, so, I'm seeing that there were several pitches
back in the day. Yeah, but this one said that there was a brand new one, or it indicated there was a brand new one. Then it rolled back into the old ones. So I just closed it. I don't know. Hey, if there's a new one, great. I'll be all for it, right? Wouldn't you? Well, Deus Ex is before your time, right?
No, I've gone back and I played
I watched you stream.
Mankind Divided.
I watched you stream one. It was it Mankind? Human Revolution?
Not Mankind Divided. It was the prior one, Human Revolution.
There we go.
I have yet to play Mankind Divided.
It's enjoyable if you go into it knowing that it's been years. Like it's a little like this new Doom, where it definitely has some differences, but as a game, I enjoy it. You just got to remove your.
I like Human Revolution, and that one was older.
Yeah, that one was Human Revolution feels like it's been fucking.
Yeah.
Who knows how long, right? Human Revolution would be. Let's look this up.
Yeah, it's pretty old. They made the switching between third person. 2008, maybe.
Your guess is 2008. Survey says. Sorry, that's an old TV show. If you're referring to the certificate, it was first released in North America August 23rd of 2011.
Okay.
You said 2008. You were close. You were close.
All right. Ballpark.
You're close. Within the ballpark. I mean, if you were a heart surgeon, that kind of accuracy is fucking not wanted at all.
Do not hire me.
Holy shit. Do not hire Johnny as your surgeon. But if we're going for video game releases, that's.
Can you imagine the conversation? Like, yeah, I'm so sorry. We did our best. We had a crack.
Listen, there's multiple veins that feed the heart, and I hit one of them. It's like, damn.
Yeah, we were in the ballpark, but
we were in the ballpark, but dude, if you ever hear a doctor say that, you know that the butt means they.
You don't want the butt.
Yeah, you don't
never want.
Not in a doctor conversation. That's true.
Any doctor conversation.
You never want to hear butt in a doctor conversation because either. Yeah, we'll stick with that. Everything sounds dirty now, but I agree with you. You never want the butt when you're talking in doctor lingo with something.
Unless the first part was bad. If they say something bad and then there's a butt. That's
true.
That may be going
okay, but I have a question for you. If you say he lost both of his arms, but they found him, you'd be like, that's not positive. Right? Like, he lost both of his arms in a car wreck, but we found him. You'd be like, well, that doesn't fucking help me. I don't know. I feel like...
Bro, that doesn't make up for the first part.
Yeah, it doesn't make up for the first part at all. I'm still going to be clapping with like sticks or something, like in the joints of my shoulders. Like, no matter what, the butt part doesn't help.
Yeah,
in these conversations. It can help us.
If you're a doctor, just don't use the word butt.
Yeah.
Ever.
Dude, do you know how uncomfortable it would be, though, that first discussion? You see it in TV shows where they'll be like... we're going to go tell this family that the person passed away.
Yeah.
And that the doctor's first. Because that funnel of despair and sorrow, there's nowhere else for it to go but back into the doctor. Like, even if you don't believe in spirituality, stuff, which I don't, you've got all these different thoughts, but the actual emotion is just aimed at that person delivering it. That would suck. That would be, I mean, obviously not suck as bad as the people dealing with it, but doctors who have to pass that data on, I'd like to talk to one and be like, how long did it take before you said it and you were thinking of a sandwich while you were doing it?
Are you a bit of a psychopath just to be able to tank all the negative emotions?
Yeah, because that's exactly what you do. Need to be like a cleric with a healing spell, except in this case, it would be just a not give a shit spell, which I feel like that would be rough. Because if you're giving that data out and then your wife comes home and says, so-and-so skipped school and he got all Fs, you'd be like, yeah, but I just dealt with 5 deaths today in the scheme of things.
True.
And it puts you on a level of an idiosyncrasy. There's such a divergent level of emotion there between, like,
It
let's
will
say your spouse and you.
desensitize you to anything else
Yeah,
in your life.
it'd be so difficult. I guess that's why you always hear about the really hard driving parent, where even if, like, you'll hear about a surgeon being a really hard driving parent to a child who wants to be a surgeon. You get that kind of parent, but you almost never get the caring surgeon parent, like in TV tropes, because it doesn't really work. Because if they're too caring, you're like, how could they care this much and not collapse? Because you will hear that. Admittedly, though, I did have a doctor that cared a lot, and I was quite surprised he was able to care, because he had been a surgeon for 40 years before he did my surgery, and he had people die on the table and stuff like that. And I was like, damn, how does this guy? Unless he was faking all the care, and if he did, dude's awesome. Dude could have been like straight up eating people, and I wouldn't have been able to pick it up, because when he talked to me, he seemed like, and I mean, he knew little things. He was really good with his memory. So he'd be like, yeah, when you came in last time, I remember blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, whoa, that was 2 years ago. And it wasn't some small thing that would make you go, he read a chart. It was that he was remembering people and little stuff, which is, it's very cool stuff.
Impressive.
Aries says, I worked with at least one doctor who was pretty sure a psychopath. I'm sure that if you've worked with one doctor who was, and you thought they were, all the others were. There's a higher chance that the one person isn't and all the others are.
If you're chopping some dude's legs in the morning, like as a part of your job, when you get home, do you even give a shit about anything?
I have a question for you. Breakfast, you get sausages. Do you cut that sausage, and does your brain go, human leg?
That's where I think they can just dissociate from what they do, in a way. Yeah, I think so. But I also think it makes them not be impacted by other stuff too
as much.
Because if you're facing that stuff every day, how much do you care if your wife Shalina is? I don't know why I said that name. That's not even the name.
I'll go with it, Shalina. I've already got her backstory created in my brain. So
Shalina is sleeping with.
That's where I knew you were going. I fucking knew you were going with Shalina's banging somebody.
With your black friend.
Yep. Every time you leave, they're banging. And when they tell you, you're like, yeah, but I got heart surgery in an hour, and I got to make sure this kid's safe. So you're like, compartmentalize it, tramp it down into this small black space in your heart next to all the other black spaces. Do you think their heart has the little stamps like old World War II ships? Where, like, when an airplane would kill multiple enemies, they'd put a stamp. His heart just has like Shalina, Marquise, fucking Ellen, just all the different, and just black stamp, black stamp, black stamp, black stamp. And he just deals with it, dude. He just sucks it up. That's the kind of guy, though, that if you go into war, you want that guy with you. And he will
take it on board, whatever it is. He'll be like, all right, I guess we're working with that.
You just hope that you don't get a Carrick stamp, because that would be the end of your life. But yeah. Anyway, where the fuck did we go with this? Let's see. Scotty doesn't know. Good song, man.
That's a good one.
Dan, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's.
Moving on from there, which is going to be difficult.
I got something here.
Okay, go for it.
So, Naughty Dog are working on a game, and there's been some data coming out from this. This has been in development for some years now, some 3 years, and the director is Sean S. Kaig. I don't know how to pronounce that, but he was the director behind Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, which I thought was one of the best Uncharted games.
It is one of the best.
It didn't
Uncharted
have
games
Nathan,
ever. Yeah,
but it was really well done, and it had the, dynamics between the two.
So good.
The two female characters, awesome. So that's super cool to me. So they've been working at it for 3 years. We also know it's not The Last of Us Part 3 or whatever. They did say that, which is also nice because I want something fresh. This is why I wanted to bring this up. Like, from your perspective, what would excite you? Is it a fresh new IP? Would it be like a different Uncharted angle? What would excite you from Naughty Dog?
And they've stated that this is a side game. It's not a space game, but it's being made right now.
The only thing we know is that it's not The Last of Us. So technically it could be anything else.
Their space / whatever game that they're doing is probably where I wanted to see them go. To see, because I like space, I like cyberpunk.
That's what I don't know if that's the game they were talking about here, because this popped up as recent.
Yeah, I'm
So
assuming
I don't
it's
know
not.
if it's
I'm assuming
a
it's
side.
not. So I'll say that I'm not too interested till I see it, but I do trust them. Generally, trust them to deliver something that is
Sure.
that I want to play, which I can't say of many developers. I do want to play it. I'm not saying I love it, but I do want to play it. So I don't really have a place I want them to go, because futuristic / cyberpunk sci-fi, I feel we're finally starting to get it. We've got the Alters, we've got the one that's coming out with Matthew McConaughey, we've got the one from them, Heretic or whatever I think it's called. I can't remember, something of the Heretic, but we do have a lot of these, which I'm excited for. So I don't really have a guess, nor do I have a. I don't really even have a desire, because I like the actress who played Nathan's daughter in the last Uncharted, but Uncharted 5 with her would not appeal to me as much as Nathan Drake overall.
Yeah.
So I don't really have an excitement there. It doesn't mean I won't play it. It just means what makes me sit up and like look online, you know. To me, the excitement is, what do I investigate? Because you guys will hear me sometimes in Discord typing furiously, and it's because I have found some fucking black hole on the internet that has caught my attention, and I'll be gone for like 12 days just diving into that. What they're doing right now doesn't do that. I would need to see more. I don't really have an idea of what they would. I mean, I want to see an Uncharted again, but it's pretty done to death when you consider Uncharted and Tomb Raider. It feels like we found all the undiscovered depths.
Everything is charted.
Yeah, everything's charted. Yeah. What if it was called Charted? It's called Charted 1. And it's just Nathan super depressed because everywhere he goes, there's already a tour bus. Like, he shows up and he swings in, he lands on this old decrepit like island, and he's like, oh my God, it's the Isle of Santa Maria. And then right behind him, you see a tour bus selling lemonade. And they're like, dude, this is Charted. And it's just it's just him slowly whittled away, his humanity chiseled away. Yeah. Until one day he just uses his revolver.
Think a fresh angle on it would get me excited for Uncharted.
How would it be fresh?
One possibility would be it's old Nathan Drake.
Oh,
right. His back hurts. Like, he can't really do that much, but he's mentoring the next Drake. You know, whether it's the daughter or some other younger person, and it's like, you know, the banter, and he's showing the ropes and teaching how to do stuff, and you know, that would be cool. It reminds me of because I love those type of mentorship relationships, like Michael had in GTA 5 with
Franklin.
Yeah,
I would agree.
That type of stuff
works
for me, and I think Nathan would be a really good mentor because he's got the banter going on too, which is nice.
I would rather have him, and I don't think this would work, but I'm just saying I don't think it'd work. That's it. It's just me randomly saying words that mean nothing. But his daughter, the girl from Justified, you know, I think she's one of the best actresses I've seen in years. She's going to be, what do you call it, in season 2 of The Walking Dead, or
she's going to be
The Last of Us. Sorry, she's going to be
in
Abby.
The Last of Us.
Yeah, she's a phenomenal actress. I've seen almost everything she's in. I think she's amazing. She did the voice for the Uncharted ending of Uncharted 4, where you see his daughter. I guess in Uncharted 4, but see, he can't mentor her, because if he does, he breaks all the promises he made at the end of 4. It breaks the character a little bit, where you're just like, so she could go off on her own, maybe, and then, you know how Ellie, is that her name? Who went to his wife in Uncharted? Is that Ellie?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It's not Ellie, right? Anyway, Emily Rose, the actress, her character, you know, you could have him trying to chase her down as she's going off on an adventure. You can do that, but I just feel like a lot of shit's discovered.
Maybe that's the title, Carrick. Uncharted Broken Promises. Boom.
That is not bad. That is not bad. That is not bad, because she makes a promise to them that she wasn't going to go do it too. That could work on many levels. It's not bad. I like that. Yeah, I'd be all for it. I don't care. I'd be all for it. Caitlin Deaver is amazing, Eternal says. Yeah, she was good. Yeah, I can't think of anything else that would work for that storyline. I'd like to see Nate just be done. I mean, I think unless you do a younger one, where I'm sure in the Uncharted games they had stories. Remember when we did this adventure? Sully or whatever telling him about an adventure prior to Uncharted 1. You could go back in time and you could play those adventures. But then in a weird way, you'd know he was going to live. I think we all knew Nate was going to live anyway, so it's not that much of a sellout. But yeah, it's a weird one. It's funny how Nathan Drake's initials are the same as Naughty Dog's. Yeah, I'm sure that was on purpose, though. But yeah. Uncharted, Broken Promises. Curtis says he likes it. Johnny may be dead weight for 90% of this podcast. I'm just trying.
But there's every now and then there's the
every
nugget.
now and then, that's so harsh. That was way harsher than I really, in my brain, thought that was going to come across. But which is a lie, obviously. But yeah, no, that was good. I do like Broken Promises. I think that would be. I like the name. It sounds good. But I honestly would much rather have it. I just firmly believe that the side game was better than most Uncharted's. I truly believe that, and I would rather have.
That's why I'd be open to something different.
Me too.
Not around Nate.
Me too. Because they had a different reason to even do what they were doing. Like, yeah. Let's see. What else do we got here for Newsical? There really isn't much. Miyazaki promises Switch 2 exclusive Duskbloods won't distract FromSoft from single-player games. Have you felt... It's going to sound overly negative, and I don't want it to sound negative. It's just a discussion point. Holy shit. What? Am I going crazy on this? GTA 5 coming to Game Pass and PC Game Pass on April 15th? Is that an April Fool's?
What?
I thought Xbox Wire on the April 3rd, yesterday, stated Grand Theft Auto 5 coming to Game Pass. And I thought Rockstar had stated no games. They weren't going to do any games on Game Pass. That's an interesting...
I'm seeing, it's not April's 1st. I mean, this was posted.
This was on the 3rd, right?
Ago. Yep.
That is definitely...
That would be insane for Game Pass.
Well, there's two things. The reason why I bring this up is sort of timely. They also stated they didn't feel Game Pass as well as streaming made any sense, which is why their games aren't on GeForce Now. But Xbox's Game Pass games, a lot of them are on GeForce Now. So I wonder if this means it's going to GeForce Now as well. I'll have to look that up. But that would be highly interesting to see if this went on GeForce Now. I don't see that news, so probably won't. But that would be a fairly large shift in what they have hinted at in the past, which is that those wouldn't be done. That's not what I expected. Sorry, that's see, and I thought 5 when back in the day, like 5-6 years ago, I thought GTA, some version of GTA, not the enhanced because that one's newer, was on Game Pass, and that they put it when they took it off, and then it hasn't been on Game Pass before.
Yeah, it hasn't been. Okay, as far as I know.
Okay. Oh, and I guess one other person thought that Dr. Gamer said, was it if they removed it during the Game Pass purge a few months ago, he thought it might have been on there as well. But hey, whatever, it's on there. So that's a big plus because, dude, like, to me, I honestly believe that's a pretty smart move and probably hints at the possibility that 6 is closer than we think. Like, that's a pretty big... I wonder what Microsoft, because everybody pays and gets paid a different way in the deals that Microsoft does for Game Pass. They've stated they didn't feel it was ever financially worth it, and they didn't feel that they wanted to deliver their games in that way. So I don't know, man.
You know what boggles my mind is that GTA 6 has hundreds or maybe even thousands of people involved in the project, right?
Right. Thousands.
And yet, we don't have a single leak in terms of timeline, anything. And that's just crazy. Like, usually, people are very bad when the group becomes bigger at, you know, not leaking stuff or like keeping everybody. We see it even in government where people, people talk or like someone will try to take advantage of saying something and like people can't coordinate in those bigger groups.
I think that the big groups have trouble coordinating normally, but once they get accustomed to it, it changes the focal point. You know how like you would have a team together and maybe somebody's vocal on that team and they leave and it takes a year or so for you to figure out who, like, do I need two people to tell me data from this team now? Because the one person was very vocal and good at note keeping. Is this person very technical but not great at speaking and great at verbal communication? This person over here. So you replace them. So I'm thinking that for them, especially with COVID, and when you look at how it impacts a lot of companies, they were already remote for a lot of people, as in remote, just different nations, different, completely different places where people were working. I'm sure they had some tools to put together. The fact that there's no leaks isn't necessarily true because there have been some small leaks, but I know exactly I know exactly what you're talking about, which is that like, I think, honestly, Johnny, people are accustomed to Ubisoft-style leaks, where it feels like every time Ubisoft takes a shit, somebody at Ubisoft takes a shit, some insider gets a full email with every single thing delineated of what's going on, right?
Yep.
That definitely happens. I think with Rockstar, it doesn't, obviously. It could also be investment, and it could be tracking. It could be that they have better tracking. This is going to sound weird, but bear with me. Could also be the nationality and how different nations treat privacy and your buy-in to a company. It could be that the people there have a higher buy-in to what they're doing, to where they just don't want it because it's been so long. And we saw this recently with leaks. We saw people pushing back on leaks recently because there was a buy-in that was going on. And it was like, you know what? I don't necessarily want a bunch of leaks anymore. So maybe with GTA, there's just so many people who are so bought in after so many years of making it. I think with Red Dead, we did have some leaks, especially when we got closer. I will say it is pretty telling that we haven't got too many huge ones. We've got small ones, but we don't even know when online is for sure coming. We don't even know, you know what I mean? There's definitely some gaps in our knowledge for GTA. I was asking because for some reason, so somebody said GTA 4 was on. Somebody had said that they thought GTA 5 was on. What I had heard, what I remember is that a long time ago GTA 5 was on, but then I also, for sure, and this is definitely backed up, is that since then, their heads have stated pretty emphatically that no, that like, we're not doing that anymore. So the fact that they're doing it again just seemed weird to me. But I don't know. We'll have to see. It's not GTA 6, so who cares, really, in the long run? I mean, I care, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's not GTA 6. What if GTA 6 was Game Pass? What in the fuck would that
That'd be insane.
Dude, it would be so amazing. I would wake up so happy. Not because it's on Game Pass, but the pure chaos. The pure...
Yeah.
I would love to wake up to the angry insect hive of the world exploding, people decrying from the fucking tops of mountains. But it's unsustainable. How can they do... it puts a smile on my face because I love to watch people try to like bounce around and figure out ways around stuff. That would be glorious, but I think Microsoft would have to pay Activision levels of money to have that.
Dude, it would be insane.
It would be nuts amounts of cash. What else do we got for news? Anything?
I think that's about it based on
Well, let's jump to some of the other stuff.
Been able to see
something I've been interested in for a while. We've talked about it a little bit here, but ended up seeing a show a little bit more about it and did some study about the human bottleneck that occurred 150,000 years ago, and they say that it was down to 1,200 to 24,000 people on all of Earth, and the way they ended up tracking it was actually pretty incredible. The three types of DNA, your female major style of DNA, how they track that. Then they tracked generic DNA that includes all of the patterns. They went back and they found out that like at some point humanity went from like a great number of people down to as small, anywhere from, we'll say 20,000 down. But on all of Earth, like that's pretty nuts. And they were trying to explain the reasons why. There was everything from like glacial, they were talking about, tides, they were talking about the Toba super earthquake, which weirdly enough tracks into a show I'm watching, Paradise, which by the way, I gotta say, probably one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
Yeah, I've now completed it 3 times. Completed it once, then stayed up all night to complete it again, and then ended up watching it again a couple days ago. Got AJ and a couple people in Discord who are watching it are just like, dude, the show is fucking incredible. But it involves some of this kind of like a great possible weird thing happening, a great big disaster kind of thing happening. But I always thought it was interesting to go back and how with DNA they can figure out and they can go, oh, okay, at this particular point, I think they stated that they had looked and they didn't find fossils from the area or a ton of them. And they knew something was up. But then as they went back and used DNA to track back to that time, they were like, oh, before that we do find fossils. After that we do. But during this very particular time, and from those fossils, which had a ton of DNA with a ton of all these other factors, went through that gap, that little bottleneck, and then didn't have those. None of them did. And this is back in the time frame when there were multiple types of, there was Homo sapien, there were different homos at the time, which sounds bad no matter how I say it. You get what I'm saying. But I found it really interesting. And I was talking to the guys in Discord saying it would be haunting but ultra powerful if you had the ability to go back in time. Couldn't change anything. But you're in a spaceship and you just watch the Earth and you were able to go back and see what happened, whether it be an asteroid, whether it be a super volcano, whether it be just the poles themselves, and like what would happen if, to see like humanity crushed down to such a small number after a massive one, and like what that would be like. But I honestly, we were talking about people being able to detach from their thoughts and emotions. In Elder God stuff, in Cthulhu, H.P. Lovecraft stuff, a lot of people go insane. There's a very good short story by an author who isn't H.P., who talks about a person who was able to go back to the time of the Big Bang in like a psychic vessel, and they went absolutely nuts because their brain couldn't handle it. And I was like, I have a feeling I would understand where they're coming from. Imagine how small you'd feel if you were able to just it would be like watching a time lapse, but you knew this was real, right? It wasn't a video. It wasn't something CGI. Like if you had a time travel device, all it did was calculate the atoms going back, like Laplace Demon we were talking about, where you could calculate everything. So all you're doing is calculating back, and you calculate all the way back, and you go to this time frame when like it went from possibly millions down to this super small group of people, and what that would be like. I think I would probably, I don't know if I go insane, but it would probably make you treat sausages not like human legs, like the doctor.
Yeah.
You would have that cold, you'd be like, dude, I saw some shit. Because like coming back from that, your wife's like, yeah, so I've been banging, Joe Blow on the side. You'd be like, you know what? There's more than 24,000 of us, so I'm cool with that. Whatever.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. You know what I think about is, was it the Neanderthals before Homo sapiens?
One of them, yeah.
Or was there?
One of them.
That was one of them?
Yeah.
Like at some point, we became Homo sapiens,
Us.
right?
Yeah.
But that's not really a line we can draw, right?
Right.
I think that's just kind of like over like hundreds of thousands of years or something, variations. But how do you draw the line, like when you stop being a Neanderthal and you start being a Homo sapiens?
Well, because
is it like one homie born completely different?
Yeah, completely different. Dude, this is so that's funny because that is sort of what we were talking about, is like, does one, and the discussion came up weirdly enough with Assassin's Creed Shadows. You see the one lady that you deal with, and she's got her eyebrows, they've shaved her eyebrows, she has the paint up here, right? So one of the guys who was playing the game thought it was a glitch, or that she was a monobrow, and that they had, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what's funny is, imagine if you were that group and you had that one person, everybody's got a unibrow, and one time somebody doesn't, and everybody's teasing the person who doesn't have it. Like there was a time There was a time where the first person to not have the full unibrow, everybody was like, like, look
But
at that.
then becomes the
Well, yeah,
everybody's unibrow.
because the fact that it's missing, I mean, whether you believe this or not, but scientists have looked at it and assumed that a good deal of it has to do with cooling the area so that your senses get to your brain better without being overlapped with the hair, and that ends up affecting smell, affects all kinds of stuff, having the hair there.
Interesting.
And I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. But can you imagine that? We're all sitting back, somebody comes in and you're like, look at Joe, man. Joe's got a divide right here. And then now you see it. If you saw somebody with a full unibrow, like somebody's forearm was up there, you'd be like, dude, that guy, what is wrong with that dude? Like, I don't know. I always find it funny to think that there was that one guy that was born, some dude named Bob, who was born that looked like us, and everybody just teasing the shit out of him. And the fact that he made it, the fact that they didn't stone him or lynch him or throw him off a cliff because he looked different, because we aren't the best with things that look different than us. Like, not at all.
So the people who were still Neanderthals, if there was some type of transition,
there was overlap.
There was overlap.
Yeah.
Did we basically kill him off? Like we were just better at stuff? Supposedly,
there's also a good bit of evidence that we bred with them sometimes. But imagine a chimp and an ape. Humans have a tendency to look at or different apes types or different people have a tendency to look at them and go, oh, they're sort of the same. But in fact, a wolf and a dog, people look at those sometimes and be like, oh, they're the same, but they're really not. It was like that. And there was overlap, and I believe they stated that the reason why the reason why one group takes over, whether it be tools, whether it be physicality, the body fits the environment better at the particular time, or even fits the prey better. So certain prey, I mean, it is all evolution. It is all sort of an island with some birds on it that's Darwin's watching. When you think about it, it's like, oh, this one group isn't as fast on their feet and they needed to be at this one particular time or one particular illness.
So just naturally over time, they don't get selected.
Illnesses like sickle cell is a certain illness that very particularly, there are, what do you call it? There are some people who are predisposed to it. They are predisposed to that, but they will actually have a resistance to malaria because of the way it's shaped, the blood cell shaped. So you could see a race. It is for that, but sickle cell's horrendous, absolutely horrendous. So, who knows? Back in the day, there might have been some sickness that pops up that only affects people with a unibrow. Fuck, I don't know. You never, and then those people are gone.
Yeah,
you suddenly got me and you running around. Male pattern
Do you think
baldness.
We still have? Oh, yeah. I mean, don't get me started.
Well, I mean, all those things are indicators.
I have
of
some angry letters.
Some
towards my ancestors. Come on, guys.
Towards your grandpa. Grandpa, what were you doing? No, what were you going to say? Sorry, I interrupted you.
Do you think that nowadays we have any selection pressure in the evolutionary sense that is going on? Because it used to be that hey, you're better at hunting, so naturally you're gonna have more offspring, right? Because you're gonna attract more mates and stuff because you're more successful, you're reliable, you can mate more, all that type of stuff. But realistically, nowadays, you could be unfit physically.
Yep.
But you know what? You're super successful. You have very high status. You're getting lines out of your building of people wanting to mate with you. And realistically, even people who are not successful have a lot of mating opportunities. Mm. And in fact, a lot of times they have more kids than more, let's say, smart people or qualified people, whatever, more successful people.
Oh, my dog's got reverse hiccups. If you can hear that, I apologize. You ever heard this?
Yeah, I heard a tiny bit only a tiny bit.
Hey, Baron.
Not anymore.
Have you ever heard reverse hiccups in a dog before? They are ridiculously painful sounding. Hang on, he's in a bit of a panic here. Hey, Baron, wanna go out? Come on, out. Go ahead.
Poor little guy.
Out. Yeah, he gets them sometimes, and when he gets them, they are harsh. You could, instead of a normal hiccup, they go in reverse, and it's almost like a weird cough or something that's in reverse. You okay? He's fine now. Dude, yeah, selection pressure is a real thing, especially when you look at what you said, where technology replaces. I mean, that's one of the reasons why whenever they're doing studies of in particular like human civilization in the future and stuff like that, looking at like readiness of people. Are you physically capable of working in a world that doesn't have cell phones and stuff like that? And do you pass enough off? And like you said, unfit, that gets into a really weird discussion, or like an uncomfortable one, of who is fit to have.
Yeah.
Because that's something that I think is beyond me, but it is a societal expectation or norm. But I'm personally of the opinion that everybody should, if you can have kids, you should have kids. But then you get the idea of CRISPR, where people are like, well, why would we want your child to be sick if we could use CRISPR to fix the DNA of a particularly bad disease? And I do find it a little odd that a lot of times the people who fight against that are ones that haven't had that experience. But you have somebody who, like, let's say they've got a family member who did have that disease. They're dead. They want it fixed. They'll be like, I would never want that. But you'll have somebody, as we joke about, some Karen out there who's never had that experience, who's like, everybody should, we shouldn't touch anything. And you have the people who've dealt with it go like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, of course we should. But then the conversation goes farther in what is a weakness. That's when shit gets really creepy, when the discussion gets really creepy, when somebody starts identifying what a weakness is. I mean, would a weakness be slightly overweight? Because if a weakness is slightly overweight, then you go, okay, we're going to go on the military weight limit for, like, let's say United States military. We'd all be dead. 99% of my friends who are in ripped shape would be dead. They wouldn't be allowed to have kids because they technically wouldn't fit this insanely small hip to weight ratio. Hip waist shoulder ratio and weight.
Not even that, but if we have the ability to give positive traits, it would also be kind of immoral to not give them if we have the ability to do so.
Yeah,
it's almost like,
like saying, because we want to pass on, so dude, so you have to have kids. This brings up the question of like solar travel or space travel. Like, so if you send 1,000 people to space on a colony ship, the expectation could be one of two things. And there's some really cool books that break down all the science about this. There's only really two. One, that you're at a zero level population, that children are only born when somebody passes away, and it depends on how far you go. The other is that you want to have as many kids as you can. The problem is you have finite resources on your way there. But there's always that interesting discussion of, if you send somebody and you want them to have children, at some point you're going to have a moment where two people are no longer in love, and you are now forcing them to have, which is like Dark Ages shit. Like, that's the thought process of fucking of marriages that are forced, which is some Dark Age level shit. There's something about that disgusts me, because that is very close to just not rape, but it is very, like, if you're making somebody be a parent and they don't want to be at all, and you're probably taking the physical steps. I guess you could say surrogacy at that time. But even then, you're like, if you're forced, that's a Black Mirror kind of.
Yeah, it's super
that's
dark.
That's some Black Mirror shit. But it's like, then you have to be, what if somebody chooses that they don't want to and they go to a colony? Let's say you go to a colony in a close star, so it's not a ton of time, and you leave at the age of 7, you show up at the age of 17, you're expected to have a kid, and you decide you don't want to have a kid. Is your worthiness then less? Are you given less means? Almost like taxes will let you tax more if you have a kid, right? So the opposite. What if you're getting a stipend? Would that stipend be less? And it probably would. Like, how would you treat that? Some great sci-fi books are about this, but do you know what? They almost always are depressing to me. They almost always show that, like, the end result is, if humans try to run the math, it's always depressing, because humans shouldn't really be math. I firmly do believe that like humans, when we start getting mathematical, it gets really gross really quick, especially to somebody like me who believes in pretty much free thought for not everything. But I mean, I don't think you should murder, but I mean, for the most part, I believe in, like, if you don't want to have kids, that's acceptable. But what if your parents went on the trip? And then you have that joke. Right. Like, well, you didn't have a choice. It's like, I didn't have a choice either. I didn't have a choice that my grandparents jumped on a fucking ship and came here either. I mean, how far down the road?
Yeah, you didn't have the choice. Yeah. But none of us
would you rather be on a colony? Let's say the colony ship was really fun. There was a lot of stuff to do, and it was spacefaring. Would you rather live on the colony ship, or would you rather sleep and wake up on the planet? So let's say you had a choice. Let's say there was one gen, and you had a choice between the two gens. You could be a Gen 1 human. That means you're taking care of the ship. It's like the TV show or the movie Passengers. You're taking care of the ship. You're doing stuff. You're banging Jennifer, whatever her name is. You're having a good time, and there's cool science stuff at times. Would you rather
Lawrence?
Jennifer Lawrence. Yeah. Would you rather have that, or would you rather have the I'm gonna go to another planet and sort of wake up on the other planet? Like, does the planet
if it's that
matter
ship
more?
Specifically, I would do that ship because it was
you would do
awesome.
the ship.
I would do the ship because also the planet probably sucks, right? It's gonna be Mars. It's not gonna be like Earth,
right?
On the best beach you can think of. No, it's gonna be shitty Mars.
Okay, well then let's make it fair. Let's say it is gonna be pretty nice. Not gonna be the best, but let's say you get to this planet.
What, Seattle? It's like.
Did you say Seattle?
Yeah.
Nothing about Seattle's good. What the fuck? Why'd you choose Seattle, man? You might as well chose San Francisco. Nobody.
I'm trying to think of an average.
Okay, but let's say it's a Pacific Northwest, so it's sort of temperate. Oh, I just disappeared completely from.
Oh
the system.
shit,
dude! Can you still hear me?
Yeah,
dude, that's amazing. Yeah.
It just creeped me out.
I think one of my systems crashed, for probably the blue screen system. That was amazing. I'm gonna pop this. But let's say, while I'm talking, you had the choice, and it was a pretty good system. Would you go to that system?
Yeah. If we're talking like Gen 1 with nothing set up on the planet,
Gen 1,
I would would stick with the ship.
What does Gen 1 mean? Oh, the Gen
1 is like we have no infrastructure. We're struggling to even get water and survive.
Right. Does that seem appealing to you? I don't know why, but it seems unappealing.
No, I would stick with the ship. I'm watching Netflix on the ship.
And just hanging out on the ship, banging Jennifer, whatever her name is.
Yeah.
Just hoping to God that everything works out. Dude, my camera crashed.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think my webcam or my camera, because I'm using my cell phone. I think my cell phone just got too hot. So just give me a second while we're yakking.
Oh damn.
While I'm doing that, do you have a science one for me? You got anything cool science-wise? Any cool stories? Anything amazing that's popped up?
I've been thinking about wormholes because I was rewatching a bit of The Expanse.
Mm-hmm.
What would you think would be the most exciting prospect if there was such a thing as a wormhole that we could use and go to a different corner of the universe? Would it be the prospect of maybe finding another civilization, or is there something you think about that would change? Would it even change anything? Because we're struggling to get to Mars even, but
yeah, we are struggling.
Do you think it would change anything at all if we found hey, tomorrow there's a wormhole we could technically go to? We still have the same challenges of interplanetary.
Dude, I feel like the idea of going to Mars or something like that is too close to Earth, that we would still have the age-old shit of Mars versus Earth that we see in all the TV shows. Where one's the what do you call it, the colony. Wherever I go, I would want to make sure that we were at a place. I'm trying to get my thing working here. I would rather go to a place where we were able to be completely separated from Earth, so that there was no overarching, because I feel like every show we see, the overarching part is the problem, where we see that all the time. And you're like, oh God, here's, we have to deal with the humanity looking over the top of us, or Earth looking over the top of us. I think that I would want to go someplace like many light years away where there was no connection. I'm going to switch this out. What about Mars though? Does Mars interest you as a place?
No, actually.
It doesn't?
I think it looks really boring, doesn't it?
I think so.
It doesn't have a lot going for it.
Yeah, I think there's nothing that I've seen so far that would make me. I love the idea of other people going, but I don't want to. I don't see any reason why I would enjoy it. There's nothing on.
No, and it worries me a great deal Oh, we got your background back.
I got my background back. Yeah, continue. Sorry, continue.
It worries me a great deal that we basically need to recreate society, right? And the people who would shape society are the people who effectively have power within the colony. So it's either, well, people in positions of power, or might be people who impose it through force too, which would be worse.
Yeah, that would be worse.
So I don't think it would be anything like what we have now, because what we have now has been created incrementally from a much different point in history, right? Like the way we started civilization, if you look back at like 1800s even,
dude,
it's very different than what it is now. If we were to create something from scratch now, would it look similar?
Yeah. I mean, that's the question. Like, and would it look like anything that we would even want to be a part of? Or would it all be, the other thing is, if you send a bunch of scientists, which are the people you're going to send, then, and I love science, obviously, then you're going to have a bunch of scientists, though, running it. And there is something to be said about human, emotion and passion and stuff like that. I mean, people are passionate about science, but you know what I mean? Like, somebody might be all, oh, okay, painters, anything, because do you get my drift? Where it's like, oh, painters aren't worth anything because they're really not doing anything, so let's get rid of painters. And you're like, well, I mean, some writers are writers because somebody painted something amazing, where they're like, oh, they saw something and they became a writer because a painting intrigued them. I don't like the idea of just arbitrarily having scientists in charge of everything. I feel like, but at the same time, I would want scientists in charge of a lot of shit, because I would also feel like they're the ones who would make some of the better controls, better ways to keep you. I wouldn't want some. Yeah, see, that's the other thing, is like food and resources and how they work is always scary in those situations too. Like I never.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Because when food gets scarce and things are difficult, the guy with the bigger muscles, or gal, at the end of the day, that they're going to throw a mutiny or something.
Is going to win out, like, overall.
They're going to win out unless you have the ability to control them through technology and stuff, which maybe that's the only way you do it. But yeah, it would be so difficult to have a society built on principles instead of just being arbitrary. Yeah. Like whoever's in power will choose what matters, right?
Yeah, and I just firmly believe that like no one group should be in charge of everything, and yet that's pretty much exactly where we would probably be stuck. Hang on, I'm gonna try to get this working one more time, and if not, we can call it here. What time are we at anyway? Can you check?
We are at 3:15.
So something took
a
hold of my PC.
2:45, 2:50, 2 hours 50.
Well, that's good. We can wrap it up here. Something took charge of my PC. I think it was my antivirus, and it was like, we don't like Carrick's face. He's for sure a bug.
Damn.
Let's stomp him out. Yeah. Yeah, we'll just have to see how it all goes. I know that I'll be dead before any of this cool shit happens, though.
Yeah. At least the AI stuff, we might, still be around.
Yeah.
See some robots.
I have a feeling with the AI stuff, I will be dead before. Well, yeah, you're right. I guess the AI stuff, yeah, we've got a better.
I think we'll probably get like house bots before we pass this mortal coil.
Honest truth. Sex bot, yes or no?
Are you asking if I would get one?
Yes.
Or if we're going to have them?
Sexbot, who cares if people know? You could have it just in, let's say no one would know. You'd have it just in your room, just banging away. No one would see you. You could be happy. You'd come home. She was generally normal, in the way she talked and dealt with stuff. Just generally, it was just pretty normal. Sorry, still trying to get this working while I'm talking to you. Would you be the person to be like, this works out, I want a sex bot? Or do you like the fitness and the requirements of trying to find a person?
That's a tough one. I like the idea of decoupling the need to be compatible physically with someone.
Right.
Because I have had sometimes where like someone is great, but there's no chemistry with them.
Sure. Yeah.
and that can be tough. So I wouldn't mind, for example, having a partner where we just don't really do physical stuff, but you know what? We're a great match. We're into the same stuff.
Yeah, very cool
We
person.
help each other in our goals, all
Mhm.
that good stuff. We want to hang out together, want to live together, but the banking is not working. The thing is not there, and if we have some robots that can help fulfill that part of the equation, and let's be honest, it makes it easier if it's robots, because if you do it with people, in my opinion, someone is always going to get hurt if you have like a
Yeah.
third person in the
Oh, you mean a
equation.
third person in the equation? Yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
like if you have
Sorry, that shit ain't working. Yeah. Yeah, no
for
way.
me, I don't think that would work. For some people, it does, right? And they have bigger circles for relationships and stuff. But yeah, I think that simplifies things in some ways.
Yeah, I would agree. What do you got streaming this weekend?
So I've been streaming a mix of first Berserker of Kazan and AC Shadows for the most part.
Is that what you're streaming this
Sometimes
weekend?
League,
Saturday?
but those, yeah. And I like I told you, I don't stream on a schedule anymore.
Right.
So it's not like guaranteed I'll stream on the weekend. Sometimes it's more during the week. But I've been having fun with it, and yeah, just shout out to some of the guys here that show up in the streams too. That's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's always good. Speaking of showing up in a stream, I chose not to. No, actually, I ended up clicking. So while we were talking, I got a message from you in Discord. And I thought, oh, this is a new message. I went to click on it. It wasn't new, it was old. But when I did that, it got confused and thought that Discord wanted my camera, and it stole it from the other software I have, which doesn't want, which can't get it back. That's why. Love the games, $10 super chat. I hate to say I'd probably go with the bot. Shut it down after and continue on your life without stress. I love my girlfriend, but if this doesn't work out, sign me up. I would say that's the other thing when it comes to bots. It depends on when you do it. Because if you talk to somebody after a bad relationship, I bet you 9 times out of 10, somebody's like bot all the way, right?
Yep.
But then when you have the chaos of another human there doing chaotic things and they surprise you in a good way, like you wake up tired and they're ribbing you and they're having fun or, sexy time, whatever. And you're like, okay, dude, this is pretty cool. Versus a robot, which is sort of, you could program that in, I bet. But you know what I mean? It would be one of those weird ones.
Yeah.
I personally would go with 2 bots because one wouldn't be enough. Just joking.
Damn.
No, dude, like, I don't know. If I was single, I don't know how I would go. I think overall, I'm pretty good at fooling myself. I don't think I would have too much of a problem with a robotic mate because,
yeah,
we now have everything from feminine devices to male devices. You got all this shit. And, somebody might say it's not replacing it. I would say that is true, but it is certainly removing one need that a relationship.
Yeah.
You
and
know
let's be honest, us guys are not that hard to please.
Okay, I'm going to fight back on that and say I believe that is a very, very, very memey kind of thing, and that I've met a lot of guys who are insanely hard to please.
Insanely hard to please.
And there's probably a lot of chicks who would argue with you right now because their man has gone to have sex with somebody else and they feel like that guy's obviously hard to please. But I do get where you're coming from. I totally understand where you're coming from, for sure. I get the thought process. Anyway, that'll be it for us. Thanks for showing up, even though I'm just completely not a part of the. Oh, actually, Seabear was reminding me that there is a question and answer. Do we have any questions in Discord real quick that we can get through? I just
yeah, I can pull it up.
While you're doing that, I'll try to fix this cam.
No this one from Zaxby. If you could revive any extinct animal, which would it be and why? For me, it would be the Tasmanian tiger because it seems so interesting and went extinct not too long ago. We even have a black and white footage of it.
We do have black and white footage of that. Unfortunately, the last bit of black and white footage, there's a website that covers tons of tons of species that have been.
Okay, I thought we were going to aliens now.
That have gone defunct, and they have black and white footage of them because we've killed so many, unfortunately. Yeah. That's a really good one. I mean,
yeah.
And they were hunted out, right? So there's that's the age-old question of what do you bring back? Do you bring back the thing that was hunted and unnaturally removed or killed because of their location versus a creature like, the woolly mammoth, which probably went extinct due to environmental pressure. Dude, that's a good question. I don't know. What do you think? Like, is there an animal you like from history where you're like, dude,
I would like a giant sea animal just to be terrified
like
of
a
it.
plesiosaur or a fucking...
There must be something, right? Like some
dude,
big...
that'd be amazing. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of scary somethings, I bet.
Yeah, if we look back, we might have to go back all the way to dinosaurs, but we'd find something.
Let me think. Saber-toothed lion or saber-toothed tiger, would be cool. But again, like, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't want to bring it back and then some jackass would shoot it, right? Pterodactyl would be fucking awesome just to see them just roaring through the skies, scaring the shit out of people.
They would literally kill you, though.
They
right?
would.
Probably.
Oh, yeah. Or I'm assuming, yeah. Or fuck you up horribly. Yeah. Or your dogs or your cats.
Like, if you see one...
Yeah, if you're outside and you see a pterodactyl, I mean, I would say that there's no more of a natural run, motherfucker, run sign than a pterodactyl flying through the sky. Like, if a pterodactyl's flying through the sky, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're The Rock. You should be going inside the house.
Yeah, there's no scenario where it's like...
there's no scenario.
Gonna cuddle with you or...
No. Or where you're going to be able to hang out and stuff. No, you're dead.
No.
For sure. What else we got?
We got this one from Jesus Crust. With South of Midnight out, what are some other countries or regions you'd like to see covered that aren't typically featured? Good one.
Oh, shit. Sorry. Drop this while trying to fix it. A typical country or region? Damn. Australia, Aborigine shit would be cool.
Yeah.
Stuff that we just...
Stuff from the bush.
From the bush.
Yeah.
We like that bush stuff.
Yeah, some kangaroo.
Oh, what was his name? Steve Irwin. Some Steve Irwin shit. Or he's like, whew, stank. Yeah, I would like... Yeah, Australia stuff would be good. What about you? Something... Yeah, Australia.
I would like something remote, like either Antarctica or...
Antarctica?
Something that takes place maybe in Antarctica or like North Pole. I don't know. Like something just to kind of
break it up
see
a little
what
bit.
That is like.
Yeah.
Something really remote would be fun.
What else we got?
Yeah. Zaxby answered to that. He would like to see Thailand. We don't see a lot of Thailand.
No, we don't. I mean, unless it's like a YouTube. Just joking. Sorry, dirty joke.
Seen a lot of that side of Thailand. This one from P. Oh, you're back.
Yep, I'm back. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
This one from Peebo Jam. What's the weirdest, worst injury you've had?
Oh, no.
He says, I was a woodworker for 15 years, so I've run the gambit between sanding off knuckles to nailing my thumb joints together. Thankfully, still have all of my digits! ! I'm a sucker for injury stories. Oof.
How do you nail your... How do you fucking nail your thumb joints together? Like, how do you have a third hand? How the fuck?
Yeah.
I feel like that.
What even happened?
A good
for
story.
That yeah. Yeah. Give us the story, Peebo Jam, or nothing.
What about you? Any amazing injury?
I never had any gruesome ones. No. I think the worst one was one time as a kid. I was running down a big stairway at my high school. It's some kind of like very big entrance, and I fell so bad that I broke both my ankles.
Fuck! Really? You never told me this. At one time?
Yeah. At the same time. Well, one was torn, the other was broken. Damn. And just like the weirdest, unluckiest way that I landed, I was like jumping and kind of goofed and somehow managed to like get both of my ankles in the worst angle. But it wasn't that gruesome. I didn't see bone or anything. There wasn't even much blood. It was just horribly painful. But that's about it. What about you?
I broke both my ankles, but that's about it. That still seems pretty bad to me. feel like.
Okay, it was, but I was thinking like, seeing bones or like something. I don't have anything like that.
I'll go with a normal story. I do have. I think we've talked about some stuff.
We're not ready for your top level.
I'm not gonna talk about that in here. I mean, I can't think of anything that doesn't involve kids doing stupid stuff, right? Like,
right.
Yours probably is the worst. I've got through most of my life without, I don't even want to say it out loud, but without breaking a bone. That's a major one. I broke my pinky bone enough times that the bone doesn't even bone anymore. It's just like tendons connected to mush, so the toe just flops around. Like when it breaks, I put it back and I duct tape it because it breaks all the time if you catch it on anything. I really can't say. I can't think of anything. I think yours is way worse than anything I've had. I did take a rope swing on accident, and it was my dad's birthday, and we thought we were going to do a rope swing, and it went over. Remembering that we live in the middle of like nowhere, so like doing stupid activities is pretty normal. And I went to jump on the rope swing, and it was about 30 feet over pavement, and it normally swang, and I missed the knot. And I fell onto the pavement and luckily didn't break anything. But I did lose all the flesh from my knee to my thigh and then from my pinky to my elbow. And I remember that was horrendous. Yeah, because I hit and slid across into the ditch. And then I got up and I'm like, I'm fine. And then I looked over and there was like parts of my body on the pavement. And I was like, oh, fuck, I'm ruined. I thought I was dying. But yeah, it wasn't. I mean, that's like kids fall all the time, riding a bike or whatever, you get skinned up. Yeah. It was the same thing. It was just more aggressive. But yeah, that would be my worst. I think yours is way worse. The idea of breaking your ankles, because that's your motation, man. That's that's all your mobility locked into a single baby joint.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
It sounds horrendous, man. What else you got?
This one from Beastie by Nature. We are nearing on a $100 pound euro base game. It doesn't seemingly be because of the content, but rather the tariffs that have now been enforced. Do you think due to these accelerated circumstances, we will now see the age of 100+ base game being global? So the tariffs are not affecting outside of the US, right? So like the price for Europe and everything.
No, theirs will go. Theirs would go up because they're doing tariffs against us. So everybody's doing tariffs. Oh, so if we make it here, but I will say we talked about this a little bit last night. Him and I think that there is sort of a mistaken belief that quality must match the 100, and that hasn't been true ever. It's what the market will take on. And while a part of it is what you get out of it, the market has already shown that it can take on $100 quite easily, especially when you look at early access games where they sell you 3 days of early access for $100. And we've seen some games that I personally don't think are anywhere near 100 take the 100 and have, 50 to 100,000 people playing that game for $100. So, I mean, I don't know what the quality really means, because if you and I were, this is why I don't rate on money, Johnny, on stars, because I can rate on money pretty easily. If the game's going to stay at 100, I can say, do I feel like my $100 was spent well? If all the games that I've rated at $60 were 100 starting tomorrow, none of them would be a buy. I think that's pretty easy for me to say. So that changes me, but it doesn't change you guys. And it doesn't change that we all like different games and that people will go out and spend an inordinate amount of money for crotchless panties. The entire world is open. Like there isn't really a game I can think of where if somebody said it was $100, I would instantly think it was worth buying. I think they're already in pretty deep water with 70. Like, is there a game? I'm not talking about GTA, because see, GTA is its own platform.
Yeah.
If you take GTA out of this equation, what game is worth $100 right now? Because I'm telling you right now, if No
Yeah.
Man's Sky was $100 and it looked like it did now with all of the improvements, I still don't think we as a market have moved to that expectation being worth 100. It'll take years. It won't happen tomorrow because some companies are smart and they'll say, I'm selling at 50, which we have right now. All games haven't achieved what Sony did. Sony said we're going to start selling at 70. I think it was 69, right? Isn't what it was Sony had changed? But it didn't change everybody at all. And it never will. There will not be a time when every game will be at $100. It will not happen. Because there will always be a company who understands that money doesn't mean you have to charge exactly the same as somebody else. That's just my long way of saying no. I don't think it means anything. I don't think it'll change anything.
I think you could ask the question when they did the $70 rise.
Yeah.
Did we notice a significant change in games? So, to give some context, around that time we saw Demon's Souls remake and we saw Ratchet and Clank. Those I think were maybe around the first ones.
Mm-hmm.
That was around the PS5. When the PS5 came out.
Right.
And I think Ratchet and Clank maybe was the first one around that price point. Don't quote me on that, but it was among the first ones. And as much as I would say that game had really high production value, I still don't feel like it was, worthy of a jump in price necessarily. With that said, I felt like I got my money's worth, so I was okay with that price point for what I got. But do I feel like games have made like a jump? I don't think so necessarily.
I don't think they've made a jump to 100, but I would say that the impracticality of me trying to judge the difference between $5 for all games and 35, which is what they would need to go to, is massive. If the games tomorrow were 100 and there was nothing included, then the expectations would be different, but they're not. And they're also, companies are smart in that they add little things that people have shown through pure consumerism to be worth a particular amount of money. So if you get 10 skins, doesn't matter when those skins were made. If you get 10 skins, somebody might pay an extra $10 if those skins are cool. And so now the game's $80, and that's how they'll make it. That's what they will do. And every company will do it differently. Some companies will try to extend the game, or just maybe say, you know what? These games cost more to make. It took us an extra 2 years to make this. We're throwing some good audio in, blah, blah, blah. But I will also say this. Did we see a dramatic rise when CD, when you look at Redbook Audio, which is your CD audio, when Sega CD came in, there was about a $10 premium at that point for those games because they had real voice. But the premium wasn't due to that. The premium was due to the fucking, at the time, going from cartridges to CDs, and CDs weren't mass produced in the same way at that time yet. And the device and its licensing structure, which changed, and the games went back down. So did we magically all decide that voices need to be in every game? No. If a game has no voice and it's great, and another game is great with voices, is that game magically worth $5 or $10 more? No.
Yeah.
The problem is, it's almost like what we talked about. If you took a fucking bunch of people, scientists, to a goddamn planet, those people are going to make decisions like what we're talking about right now, and that's scary as shit. Because I don't want those people saying you have to have exactly this many voices in your game. You have to have this many things in your game to be worthwhile. Like, that's scary as fuck, because some developers don't have the money to put voice in games. They don't have it. It's expensive for them. It's a great amount of money for what Reg is going to skip fucking anyway, right? That's what Solar is going to skip anyway. So you're putting it in so that your arbitrary number matches this overall dogmatic number we've created, which a good number of people are not going to interact with. I don't see how it works that way. I see how it works is Nintendo says, here's your Switch for $500. And you decide if you personally think it's worth that money. And if enough yous get together and don't buy it, that company has to change or go out of business. That, to me, is exactly what I want. I don't want us arbitrarily choosing a price. I want us choosing a price via normal situations that we decide. as a community, as a whatever, and that if that fucking company doesn't move, then that company is gone, or they're the Neo Geo. I lived at a time where the consoles were $300 and the games were $800. The Neo Geo had $800 games, and they still sold because someone out there had the money to buy those.
Right. So if tomorrow Sony releases an $80 game, if the game is good and people buy it, that will be a signal that people were okay with the price.
For now, that, does that mean single game
for that single game?
Yes.
That doesn't mean that every game will meet the value proposition at 80 going forward.
Right. And can you imagine how fucking backwards this would be if we flipped it and said, well, this game at $20 was worth this, so now all games should be $20 that do the exact... That makes no fucking sense, man.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense.
It doesn't. People have to look at it as just like the same thing happened where people were like, oh, Nintendo is going to signal others. If that were true, and it could possibly be true, I don't think it would because it's never really happened. But if it were true that they are signaling to everybody else that $80 is a normal price, there will still be companies that do not choose $80. They will not choose $80. That's me, by the way. If I was making a game, would I do a game at 70 right now? I would not. I can tell you the honest truth. If I made a AAA game, I would not sell that fucking game at $70. I would not even probably sell it at 60. I would do as many deals as I could to make sure that people realize this was a AAA game that I was delivering at a very reduced cost, even if it cost me a bunch, because the idea would be that you would cause the community to look at that and say, hey, I want to jump on board that for $50 versus a good game that's like all the others for the same price. And that's sort of how fucking economy works, dude. Like,
yeah,
it sucks, but I've lived through some crazier times than this. I'm not too surprised, too, because Nintendo gets away with some crazy shit. And by the way, the people we're talking to in our podcast aren't the same people who are probably running out there and buying every Nintendo device, including the fucking Virtual Boy, for the top price. People bought that.
And just because they get away with it doesn't mean that everybody else would.
Absolutely true. Yeah.
This one from Green Saturn says, hey, ACG, as someone who's never bought the original Switch, would this be a good entry point into Nintendo's catalog?
Ooh, that's a good question. You mean is now a good... Man, if you can get a used Switch, now there's a lot of shit on the Switch.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff on the Switch. Would now be a good time to get a Switch? Dude, that's a good question, man. I mean, let's take it a step farther and talk about hacking for a second, which I do not condone. I'm just going to talk about hacking for a second. You can also hack the Switch to run Android, which then you can stream Moonlight to. You know what I mean? Like, there's a Switch as a platform right now isn't going to be getting the security updates, so you wouldn't have to worry about security updating it all the time and worried about it getting, like, you know, what do you call it, unhacked, or like I had to deal with the 360 back in the day. Dude, Switch right now might be the problem is I think the Switch's used console market's expensive, isn't it? I'm pretty sure the Switch still garners a pretty hefty...
Yeah, it's still pricey.
Right? It's still pricey.
He might mean, because he mentions the catalog, he might mean just the games. Like, are there good games to get into now? There's some, there's a good number of solid games, for sure.
That's why I never really look at the platform by itself, because if you say are there good games, we dive into that weird discussion of depends on what you like, and that feels like I'm not answering. Because like that, of course it depends on what you like. You could, I mean, people bought the beta versus VCR, like it depended.
But there's a good
because it had porn on it.
Amount and variety.
Yeah, Switch has got some good stuff
for a lot of people.
Switch is great screen. Good screen size. I don't like the hands, but like good screen size, good battery life. It's
a solid.
It also just depends on the price, though, right? Because I mean, if the price is still really close to like what a Switch 2 might cost you plus $100, I do think that is going to. I think a lot of people are going to be thinking this summer for a long time on what to get, because if let's say it's $100 more to get a Switch 2 used than a Switch, that's a That's a fine line. That's basically one of their games. Now that they raise game prices. Do you see what I'm saying? For the cost of one of their games, one of their new games, you could get a Switch 2 versus a Switch. There's some discussion to be had on which one you get at that point.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then last question from Bear. I've recently started diving into Udemy online courses to learn about Microsoft Azure for fun. Azure.
Azure.
It's been pretty fun to learn something new on my own time without any outside pressure, and I find myself studying more than if I was required to. What are your thoughts on Udemy, and do you guys have any other online self-learning options?
Go for it. You and I just talked about this.
We were recently talking about this. Some time ago I tried Skillshare, and it was okay for like some variety stuff, but I found the depth wasn't quite that good. But recently talking to you, I was asking if you had ideas, and you proposed Masterclass, and I've been checking it out. I've listened to several now, a couple about cooking that were excellent, a couple about creativity and writing, one from what's his name?
Aaron Sorkin.
Yep. He's great, even though I'm not a writer. I just found it interesting. It was like interesting to learn about his perspective on that. So even though they might not be skills you want to learn yourself, I find it really enriching to just kind of be exposed to someone's completely unique perspective on things. I also was listening to Hans Zimmer. He's got one where he talks about music and how he works to create themes and stuff, which is interesting too. So yeah, I like that type of stuff, but I would say those are also great, even if you're not going to learn the skill. So it's a bit different than Udemy. So
yeah,
I don't know if there's a good equivalent. Udemy is really good at what they do, basically, right? So whether it's gaming or coding in general, they're pretty solid. I don't know if there's another. I use Pluralsight as well in my company. Pluralsight, they also got really good courses for programming specifically, and stuff on the cloud too, like he was talking about. So there's that.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I think I can't remember what got me into Masterclass. Probably something like Sorkin, where they're really high level, like they're the best of the best on Masterclass is what you notice. I've noticed like they're sort of like the more eclectic best of the best is Masterclass. Then you have Skillshare. You've got Udemy or Udemy. I've never really tracked how they pronounce it. There's about 1,000 others. And then there's YouTube and there's ChatGPT, for Christ's sakes. I mean, there's all these places. I would say it really also depends on your buy-in because they all cost a different level of money or time. And that's really what's important. I'm a big believer that if I don't pay out, it's why I buy their games. If I don't pay out, I don't get as much in because the risk isn't there. My focus isn't drawn. So I find with like Masterclass, I pay, I sit, I do every bit of coursework, and I adore it. I would say you already know most of the ones that we know, and I think that they're phenomenal. But a lot of people don't like that kind of stuff. It depends. If you think they're phenomenal, you're probably going to love them. If somebody else watched me do one, they'd be like, why are you learning randomly? I know a lot of people don't want to learn, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's that eclectic idea that you all have to. I would say if I'm talking about games, I should learn. If a reviewer is not understanding how to make games, go into GDC and stuff like that, there is actually something there to be where you're like, I think there should be some basic knowledge that you're learning year after year, because otherwise you're going to be talking about Unreal 3 and we're on 5 and 6 now. You know, like there's going to be some gaps in your knowledge. But a normal person, if you don't want to learn, it's fine. But physical stuff, go out and go to a class if you can. I know some people don't want to go to like a kayaking class, but that would be something. I think there's something about going to board game nights. We've got Penty, who has a local board game place that he goes to where they do a full people sitting down learning board games. People think that you can't learn anything from a board game. Fuck that. Board games are great. Board games will teach you diplomacy in real life because some people take that shit super serious. It might
Yep.
teach you how to deal with other people, how to understand and listen. If you listen to, dude, do you know how much you can learn, Johnny, from 15 minutes of watching somebody play fucking a Civilization game? You can pick up on what matters to that person so quickly if you watch them play a board game. You'll be sitting back going, that motherfucker is collecting water before anybody else is even talking about water. Like, they're thinking ahead, or they're not making sense. They're doing whatever they want. They're more carefree.
Yeah.
That kind of shit is super useful for really every day-to-day life. But sometimes you don't want to learn something that's day-to-day either. Like, you're doing cooking. You and I can cook on our own. I can microwave shit, but you're learning how to cook because cooking is something like you, number one, I already know you like to do it. But number two, there's a master to that. There's like you don't have to cook a perfect roast all the time to still feel confident that you can cook one and that and that that's in your brain. I think there's something hugely beneficial to humans' brains when they pick up data that may not be useful. It's just still there. It's something their brain is like had to figure out.
Yeah, and even skills you don't use directly will compound in interesting ways, because there might be a metaphor that I learned from Ernst Sorkin that I can now use, and that enriches my conversation and stuff. So I really think, and sometimes it's unsuspecting. There have been times where, because of my music background, I've been able to think about some things in my work, which has nothing to do with it, software engineering. There have been some weird overlaps at times where I was actually really well suited to a particular, project or whatever, because I had a certain sensibility about like creativity and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes unsuspecting, but skills do come together and they shape you into a really unique human being, and sometimes uniquely qualified for a specific task in a way you might not suspect.
Completely unconnected. A couple days ago, I taught myself Docker and Portainer because I was talking to Reg about doing some stuff on my server.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, I need to teach myself. So I sat down for like 6 hours, and I was like, and by the time I was done, had I taught myself all that? Yeah. Can I do it now? Yeah. But guess what? It helped me in about 3 places that were completely unconnected to Docker or Linux or server software. I ended up within 1 day, like I was able to read a web page that I had gone to for a while a little quicker, because he would drop in little bits of commands while he was describing something for a game. Those are things that now I was like, oh, of course, that's what that's what that means. This little syntax change. That's what he's talking about. Suddenly stuff that I was trying to get a server to look at PDFs more quickly, I got that worked out. That wasn't even the main thing I learned. I actually learned that I could go to another website completely unconnected and absent-mindedly go, oh, I get it now. Like, not that I didn't before, but it's just a little bit more data. That shit's super useful, dude. I love tangential knowledge, where you go and learn something. You're like, I understand how to fix a flat. And you think that that's what you learned. And then somebody else will be talking about air pressure in a fucking fuselage somewhere. And your brain goes, oh, like a car tire. And you're able to put those two things together. And weirdly enough, that may sound basic as hell, but the people I talk to so many times who don't know like really how a tire works, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, they don't have to, but the idea of being able, and then you're talking to them and they get it and you get it, and you draw a comparison between things, and suddenly everybody in the room understands. That's what makes a good leader too. A good leader isn't somebody who can dogmatically control things. That's also very good. And if you're in the military, maybe even exceptional. But if you're in a real job, the ability to understand and learn and figure out how to get John and Bill to go the same fucking direction in a day and be able to both tell you what they did without a complete travesty is insanely, insanely useful. And you'll find people who are not at college. Some people learn at college, but people who are not, who are able to do that, do incredibly well, because they're able to figure out, oh, this person's going over here. They may not do other stuff as well. You don't want them to write an email to your CEO. Trust me, I've been in that position. But, that tangential shit is useful. Anything else we got before I read this last two on my side?
I think that's it.
I was being asked if the Switch library is one of the best. The hardware is big reason. People are talking about is now a good time to get a Switch 1 versus a 2. I would say look at the price. Right? So Antivirus says for creative stuff, Creative Live is excellent. I don't know what that means.
Not sure.
Let's see. I have an LCD deck and I wanted to upgrade to a newer or get a Switch. Seems limiting in many ways. I don't know what that means. I was always curious because I have an LCD deck, I'm assuming Steam Deck, and wanted to upgrade to a newer one or get a Switch. Oh, I see. Man, I would say right now to wait for the Switch 2 and see what the prices are if you're trying to decide between those. And real quick, I'll read the ones from Twitch and we'll get out of here. First one up, and by the way, if you're not on Patreon by the end of the day, just saying you're a bad person. Next up, hot takes. I ask people for their hot takes. Dominic says most third-party games on Switch are pretty rough from previous gen. It's fair enough. Ransom says Microsoft doesn't get enough credit for what they do in gaming. Xbox, console, PC integration, cross-platform support, multi-platform releases, Game Pass Day 1 games, great curation of third-party rewards program, perks, clouds, consumer-friendly pricing, and great games. That is true, though you could even remove the great games, because I'm sure somebody would argue that, but there are some things that all these companies do that people just do not get credit for. It's very difficult to give credit to something when you hate it. Isn't that true? Like,
yeah,
isn't that one of the hardest skills, speaking of skills to learn? I feel like one of the most hardest, like a very difficult skill is to appreciate, if you hate something, to appreciate it because you feel like you're psychically giving it energy and that but you do appreciate it even though you're like, I fucking hate this, but this one thing is really good. I don't know.
Yeah.
That is really hard for me, man. I'm trying to think of what I hate. I know this has popped up though, where there'll be times where I'm like, Death Stranding. I hate that game.
Death Stranding.
But there are times where I'm like, I really appreciate its overall look and what it's done graphically. But at the same time, I almost don't want to say anything negative because I don't want somebody else to jump into the conversation and be like, yeah, and it's a good game. And I'll be like, fuck, it's not. I'm just joking. It's not that bad. All right. That'll be it for us. Johnny, thank you as always. Next week, you'll see Silver here as well. If you guys get a chance, check out the Discord. It helps out the channel. All I can say is I don't think you'll regret it. And if you do, well,
give your
a
money
lot
back?
cheaper than a Switch 2 or a Switch 2 game.
Dude, yeah.
I feel like you get more enjoyment out of our Discord and hanging out than you would from a Switch 2 or a Switch 2 game. Just saying. Even if it's Super Mario X2 or whatever the new one will be called. Or Donkey Kong. I don't know. That's pretty high. I feel like maybe I overrated the Discord because if I had a choice between our Discord and like a new Mario game,
yeah,
I think I go with
maybe
Mario.
Donkey Kong.
We can go with Donkey Kong. We can go with second tier character. We can go with Donkey Kong. Anyway, that'll be it for us. I hope you guys don't die. Peace out. Enjoy your weekends. Thank you, Johnny, as always. Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.